What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast here on this Friday, December 6th, 2024, right here in the great city of Tampa, Florida. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, a little bit of everything on all of those social media platforms. And most importantly, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here. We're going to continue to churn out content here for the rest of the year here in 2024. Again, on every Monday, every Friday for the rest of 2024. And then we're going live on a daily basis starting at noon in 2025. We'll announce the official start date here in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, everybody out there, for all of the support over the last couple of weeks. It has been a transition, to say the least, but hey, change is good. And I'm excited for the future. And again, I can't thank you all enough for the kind words and the love and support. And just stay tuned. That's why you want to follow me on social media, because there's so many different things that I have my hands in, and can't wait to see what the future holds. Shout out to Robert Cochran and Bard Hill, two of the guys that have been supporting. Thank you guys so very much. All-star crew on the program today. That's one of the big things for me. I want to make sure that when I'm bringing guests on, they're taking this show to the next level. That's what the Recher podcast is going to be all about. We're going to be here for you at noon when nobody else is talking about the local sports here in the Tampa Bay area. But of course, we're going to expand. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things as well. So we're going to have Greg Wyshynski joining us at 12:20 from ESPN, the worldwide leader. What the heck's going on with the Four Nations and the picking of their teams over in the last couple of days? What does he think of the Tampa Bay Lightning after a 8-1 win over the San Jose Sharks? And huge news in the NHL as Jacob Trouba, the New York Rangers captain, looks like he is on the trade block. We actually saw something similar to that here with Ryan McDonough a couple of years ago. 12:40, some Buccaneers talk. 10 things that are standing out to me about this Bucs squad ahead of the game on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders. It's still weird to say Las Vegas. I still got Oakland and LA in my brain. It's always going to be like that for sure. 1 o'clock, Rick Peckham, it was just announced last night that he's going to be inducted into the Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Fame. He's going to join us at 1 o'clock today. Well deserved for one of the original voices of our hockey team here in the Tampa Bay area. So I'm glad that he took a day off from golfing so we can join us on the program. 1:20, Ira Kaufman from Joebucsfan is going to join us to talk some Buccaneers football. Hey, Jay Bird, let me bend your ear on something. I don't know what's going to happen at 1:20 with Ira Kaufman. I don't know if his phone's going to work. I have no idea if he knows how to use social media and technology, but we're going to find out together at 1:20. And then at 1:40, our guy Forrest Lasso, one of the linchpins of this Tampa Bay Rowdies club, re-signs with the team for 2025. They didn't offer him a contract. People were wondering, what's the deal there? We're going to find out what happened, and Forrest is going to join us at 1:40 as the Rowdies look to climb back up the table and hoist that trophy again. I really want to see that third star above the crest. But we're going to start the program today with one of the biggest topics here in the Tampa Bay area. What is going on with the Tampa Bay Rays and their stadium? And no better voice to talk about that topic than our good pal Marc Topkin from the Tampa Bay Times Rays Insider. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Jay. How are you?
I'm great, man. As no shortage of dull moments when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays. And for you, I'm glad you got to take some time and spend with the family. And but man, it's like you come back and here you go, man. It's just a bunch of craziness. For other teams, it could be trades, it could be free agent signings, but for the Rays, it's this stadium deal. Did you think when everything a couple of months ago seemed like, all right, we're going to see shovels on the ground, did you ever think we were going to get to a point where there's still a lot of back and forth and there's still a lot of uncertainty?
Nah, I guess I'm just naive. I actually thought a signed deal between three parties was pretty legit, and the fact that they all celebrated it and toasted it and had a press conference, I foolishly thought that meant it was done, but obviously it wasn't. It isn't. We've since run through a number of issues that have come up here, obviously all related to the financing, and I don't think we really know what's going to happen yet. And I'm not sure if you had Stu Sternberg or Ken Welch on your show that they would know either, to be honest with you. I feel like we're just at a moment of uncertainty, of a lack of clarity, of a couple of different paths this could lead down. And there's obviously been a lot of behind the scenes conversations. Some of those were shared at the city council meeting yesterday, and I think there's going to be more in advance of the county commission meeting coming up on December 17th.
Yeah, and it's, I had Chris Lavala on a couple of weeks ago, and I just want to try to get all sides, right? Because everybody's looking at Chris Lavala. How could you not be in agreement for this deal? But he's speaking on behalf of the people that voted him in there. So he's got to look at this from a different perspective. So people were like, why would you have him on the podcast? I'm like, I want to hear what he has to say, because this is a very, thorough type of issue. It's not just baseball. It's not just, hey, it's a stadium. It's everything around it. And we've been very fortunate to have one of your colleagues, Colleen, right on the program too. And she's been there spending 12 hours a day at city council meetings and county commission meetings. Is it surprising to you that even after all this time, I don't even know if we have more clarity?
I mean, it's not surprising. It's kind of depressing, I guess, in a way, if you want to answer. I was with Colleen and John Romano at that city council meeting yesterday, and yeah, quick shout out to Colleen, because now, having sat through 2 city council meetings in the last month or so, I mean, I don't know how she does it, and I'll probably say this and it'll come back and bite me here, but the worst baseball game is still better than the best city council meeting to cover. And it was a good reminder of how fortunate we are to live in the sports world sometimes. But because, yeah, just and respectful of everything that they do, but just going through a city council meeting, wow, what a long process that is. And look, a lot of different people, a lot of different opinions. There were some really poignant speakers yesterday at the city council. St. Pete did approve it, but yeah, I mean, I think the part that's the most troubling or concerning part of this, and Jay, I think we always have to say, respectful of all the other issues that have happened in this community due to the hurricane. I said before, if you had that crawl, could almost say, like, all these comments are respectful of people that truly lost homes and jobs and millions of dollars and all that kind of thing. But having said that, it's just that there's no North Star here. Like, you don't know who actually knows what's going to happen. Where is this actually headed? And I really don't think anyone knows. I think, take everyone at their word. The Rays want to stay. The Rays don't think this current deal will work under the financials with the impact of the hurricane. The county wants to reconsider. I mean, I think there's some merit to the argument that some have made that, the deal was done by the previous county commission and that the current makeup should be respectful of that. But, I listened to that Chris Lavala interview you had, and certainly, the other point is that they're the people sitting in the chair now, and then the situation has changed. So I think everyone, to a certain degree, is right, but also there has to be, a resolution here. This cannot continue to go on. The clock is ticking. It took the Rays a lot of work to figure out 2025. Now they're trying to figure out 2026 and 2027 and 2028 and beyond. I mean, I just typed a couple paragraphs for a Sunday story, and the gist of it was they don't know if they're going to be playing in Tampa Bay area in 2026, if they're going to be playing in an interim home somewhere else in 2026, or they could be gone for good. I don't think anyone knows that. And it's a pretty significant variety of options and outcomes there.
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part about it is, for a team that does struggle with attendance at times, for them to be out of sight, out of mind for 2 years, and then, come back. That's certainly, in my opinion, not a recipe for success, Mark.
Right, and that's even assuming they're coming back. I mean,
right.
that and again, that's, I think, part of this. If you knew that the new stadium was going to be built, and the issue was what to do with the Trop and where do you play in those interim years, that's one fairly significant problem. If you had the Trop to play in through 2027 or 2028 as originally planned, but you had an issue with the new stadium, then that would be a different significant problem to work on. But now you put both in there together, and the impact of that, and the Pinellas County suggestion of should they stay in the county, the rules of the previous agreement versus the rules of the new agreement, the provisions, did they do wrong by going to Hillsborough? There's so many different layers to this, and I think that's just added to the complexity, and everyone, kind of defending their own side of this. And I know there's been some discussion in the community. I don't know if there's any proven validity to it yet, but will Hillsborough try to make yet another run at offering their own stadium? I know Ken Hagan has spoken out along those lines. So there's just too many layers to this at this late date There needs to be some resolution here, and I think some focus to is it this deal happening or not. I know some of the things mentioned at City Council meeting yesterday. They had a meeting. The mayor said he had a meeting with Stu Sternberg. Was ways to address, I think what they called it was the perceived revenue shortfall, and if there's things they can do to help the Rays, but not putting more money into the deal from the city perspective. Maybe it's going to be Jay Recher Stadium. I don't know. Maybe he's got something in the works.
I'm gonna have to dig deep into the Ronnie Lane retirement fund and see if he can send me some shillings. I don't mind sharing it with him. But you mentioned like the city council meeting yesterday, and some members like, we didn't hear from the Rays, and somebody else was like, yeah, we talked to them, we told them not to come. We've heard that on both city council meetings and county commissioner meetings, where there's certain members that are like, I haven't heard from them, and then others like, oh yeah, we heard from that. Isn't that? And somebody else said, all right, this isn't a great way to start off a 30-year partnership. Like the lack of communication in all parties. I'm not trying to throw blame at anybody, but you're getting different messages from all of these people that are supposed to be working together for this deal that's going to make our community better. Like that is true. Like that's not a great way to start off a partnership, because then it seems like there's a lack of transparency when we know, Mark, that there's a lack of communication here.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that there have been some communication issues. I think there's some trust issues. And also, I'm not really good at like negotiating stuff, but it also, would kind of make sense to me that you're going to speak and be more open with the people that are on your side than the people that are not on your side, right? So, Chris Latvala, for example, has been a no to this process the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the Rays, it probably doesn't make sense to invest time and energy and capital into spending time with him if he's going to vote no anyway. Whereas some of the other commissioners, maybe they're more open that voted no previously or have indicated they would be against it, would be open to discussion. So I kind of get that aspect too. Like I said earlier, I think you could make a case, to a degree, everyone's right in what they're saying. That's what they believe. That's what they feel, whatever side of this they're on. But, we need a referee here. We need a clock. We need someone to say this has to be resolved. I mean, I don't know, Jay, does this all end up in court? Does this go on for years and years?
Yeah, it seems like a litigation, right? I mean, seems like we're on the precipice of something like that, because now what happens? All right, so the city approved the bonds yesterday. What happens if the county commission, after delaying this vote a couple of times, what if they approve the bonds on December 17th? Then what do the Rays do, right? Because they're waiting for the city and the county are like, all right, well, if you want to back out, send a termination letter. The Rays don't want to do that because whether, people agree or disagree, they don't want to give up some of the vernacular in that deal that says they can develop on that land. And even if they leave, they have that land, which is, I can understand that, right? If you got that in writing, you don't want to get rid of that. Because that is one of the things that has really given some pause that are against this deal. Like, do we really want to give the Rays this control of the land surrounding the stadium? The Rays have that in writing. So it makes sense for them not to be so forthright of here's a termination letter. But Mark, where do they go if the county, Pinellas County, passes the bonds on December 17th and now it's on them?
I think that's, of all the different scenarios, just from a theater standpoint, that's probably the most interesting one, because you're right. And one of the St. Pete City Council members yesterday, I don't remember which one, but she said she felt, in essence, by voting for the bonds yesterday, the city was calling the Rays bluff and saying, okay, we're still doing this deal under the current terms that were agreed upon. And then she also said she would urge the county to do the same. So that would set it up exactly as you say. And then in theory, that would seem to force the Rays to then make a decision. Can they find a way to still make this deal work? Can they suggest some changes that the city and county would be amenable to? Do they walk away at that point and we think forfeit their rights to do the land development deal? Or is there another option out there, which I don't think we've all seen some of these coming previously. So maybe there is some other option out there too. But no, I agree with you. I think that probably puts the Rays, whatever cliche you want to say, on the clock here, on the spot, ball in their court, whichever one we want to use. But I do think that the county approving it does shift the onus to the Rays, and it's kind of their option then if they want to proceed or terminate or find a way to renegotiate.
You brought up a great point before, Mark, about how it's not just one, two, it's everything, right? It's the whole ball of wax here. Are we completely out of the possibility that the Rays can play in the Trop at some point between now and the day of the new stadium? Because I know that that's an entire thing going through insurance. How much can we kick in? Because it seems like for all the talks that we've had about bonds lately, we're not talking about, all right, those, as you alluded to, 26 and 27, maybe 28, where if you throw some money, if you work on the trop, you could at least use it for 3 years. Even, like you said, we also have to be aware that another storm could come, right, and rip the top off it again. What's the latest on that aspect of the deal of possibly trying to refurbish the trop so they can play some baseball there before the new stadium?
Yeah, and in fact, Colleen Wright, I think, had that this morning too. That I wasn't aware of this. There's a vote scheduled for next week. The St. Pete City Council. That's their bet. That's just them. That's not the county, just the city on that one. That they're going to vote on at least starting some more initial work. They turned down the vote to do all the work on the trop, but there's a vote to at least authorize some initial work on that. And no, I don't think the trop is out. And I think that, this was brought up. I think Brian Ault said this at the previous city council meeting. Again, it all blurs together. I apologize. I don't have the scorebook where I can tell you what inning it was and what pitch we're talking about here. But I think Brian Ault brought it up saying that they might be better off, or they've talked to the Rays, and maybe they'd be better off talking about a settlement over the trop, because the city is obligated to provide a playing facility for the Rays for the terms of the lease. And that they'd be better off getting a settlement than having the trop fixed. So that's another. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about the finances. And without knowing what their options are, I'm not sure how they would know whether that's the right deal or the wrong deal. But no, I don't think fixing the trop is out of the question. The Rays' initial objections to the city plan a couple weeks ago were that they didn't think the price, they thought it was going to be more expensive than the city thought, and they thought it would take longer than the city projected. And that city timeline, I made it through most of that 412-page report. I didn't think my computer could even handle the download, but it did. It did. Times Computer made it through.
Yeah,
but, that timeline was like for it to be kind of done a month before opening day, but like finishing touches like the week before opening day. And then look, they could ask MLB to put them on the road the first 2 weeks. They could buy some extra time, whatever needed. But yeah, that would be, I could see where the Rays would be a little uncomfortable with that. And their point was they didn't want to be in a situation where they're planning to go back in the trop, but because the repairs would be ongoing up until months before, obviously the MLB schedule is done well before that. They would almost have to have two plans. And then if that plan wasn't playing in the Tampa Bay area, it would be very logistically hard for everybody. If it was playing in the Tampa Bay area, would they want to risk another summer of being exposed to the rain and the heat? And this year we know that schedule was tweaked somewhat to accommodate them. Do you have to do that again? Like there's a lot of moving pieces to just say, oh, well, if the trop's not ready, go play somewhere else. You can't just do that. So I get that. Is there a scenario where the trop is fixed for 27 and the Rays make, a second year of a temporary home, perhaps in the Tampa Bay area, whether stay at Steinbrenner, play in Clearwater, wherever. I don't know. Is that another thing that's going to end up on the table here? And then they fix the trop, or do you say, you know what, don't fix the trop, use that money to go into this new stadium deal somehow. And maybe it's easier to build the new stadium if you're not like those sites are adjacent. So it would seem, just as a layman, that if you're trying to fix the trop and you're trying to build the new stadium, and they're basically are properties that abut each other, and you need some shared space there, you need shared crews, you should share materials. Is it easier to just build a new stadium and knock down the trop? I don't know.
Jeez, just when you thought, right, you knew everything about baseball, you worry about trades and your salary caps, and you have to be a lawyer and a doctor, and then this whole thing comes out. Right. You have to totally reorganize everything you think you know about the game. Marc Topkin, Tampa Bay Times, TV Times _Rays. Check him out on Twitter/X. Marc, always so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, man. I'm so glad you got to see your family for the holidays. Grandpa Topkin, it looks good on you, brother. I when I look at you, I think about my mom and dad. They just, when they became grandparents, they have like this different glow about them, and you can certainly see that with you, man. So happy for you and your family. And again, thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Good stuff there. Marc Topkin, Tampa Bay Times. There's just nobody better than Topper, right? There's no other person that I'd rather talk to about the Tampa Bay Rays. He is all over it. He's been all over it. He is the guy when it comes to our Rays here in the Tampa Bay area. It's just so many questions still, man. Not enough answers. And it sucks, man. It really, really does suck that we're at this point. And as Mark alluded to there, and I kind of brought up when I was asking him about Tropicana Field possibly being, refurbished, right? Fix that roof, see if they can play there in 26, 27, 28, possibly, if you have to move back the date until 2029, where you're going to see the new stadium. It's going to be hard enough to be able to have these deals come together when everybody's working in concert, when the communication is upfront and apparent, and there's no semblance of dishonesty or distrust. But when you have certain council members and certain county commissioners and certain members of the Rays organization, and there's a lot of back and forth, it just makes it that much more difficult to get something like this done. The obstacles and the trials and tribulations that people have to go through to see what is going on with the Tampa Bay Rays, I don't envy their position whatsoever. All right, let's flip the script a little bit and let's bring in our guy from ESPN, Greg Wyshynski. I hope he's doing a lot better than Jacob Trouba is doing. And also, who else didn't make the teams? Well, he obviously didn't make the team, but John Tavares found out he didn't make the team. Ryan McDonough. I was reading an article on ESPN about, Bill Guerin said, we didn't want to do the Patrick Kanes and Ryan McDonough thing. I'm like, oh my God, I hope they don't.
No, but that's great. Like in the past, in the past, the Team USA management has shown such fealty towards having the veterans make the roster and feeling this sort of sense of dedication to the older generations of American players that have come through. By the way, they've won squat, but they've come through and paid their dues. So the fact that they skewed a little bit younger was I think good and a necessity, because it was all about this generation of players. We've been waiting, it seems like a decade, to see Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes, the Kachucks all come up and be part of Team USA. The real intrigue was that they did the other thing that other Team USA management groups have done, which is to feel the need to have role players in the roster. So you get your Vincent Trocheck on the roster instead of a Cole Caulfield or a Tage Thompson or a guy who I thought was really going to make it because I figured he could play down in the bottom six and be adaptable, Clayton Keller of the Utah Hockey Club. Like, I thought that there were some young players they could have put into those roles, but I do understand when it's a short tournament, you're building for a 3 or 4 game stretch, and you might have to play Canada twice. Like, I understand the idea of having some veterans on the roster that can maybe do some of the dirty work that you don't want to ask a guy who's a top line offensive player to all of a sudden change his stripes and do for you.
Yeah, it's funny. Like 2-3 weeks ago, you're seeing all these projections for Team Canada. And then like 2 weeks ago, it's like, well, Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel might be on the roster. And then I'm looking in the locker and I'm looking at Cirelli and I'm going, dude, that could be the fourth line center at Team Canada. And the groundswell. And of course, we know with Coop being the head coach, he knows what he gets from those two guys.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, Canada's trying to do the same thing. Like, they didn't take Tavares, they took Anthony Cirelli. So, I mean, it's going to be unique to see how these coaches not only utilize the roster, but also deploy these guys in game situations.
Yeah. And I think I wonder if the Cirelli, I didn't write about this yesterday. I graded out all the rosters, USA, Canada, Sweden, Finland, and then also covered the surprises and the snubs. It's on ESPN.com if you want to read it. I didn't bring this up, but I meant to, which is, I wonder if the Cirelli thing is directly related to them no longer having Patrice Bergeron on the roster. Like, when you had Patrice Bergeron on Team Canada, like, there's your first or second line center, probably second line considering Sid was there, but also a guy that you could throw out as your defensive stopper. So you didn't need an Anthony Cirelli. You didn't need a fourth line defensive center when you had Bergeron on the roster. So I think him retiring and leaving that space open on Team Canada directly led to someone like Cirelli making the roster to have the shutdown defensive center that Bergeron always was for Team Canada for like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, it's a great point. I remember last year in Toronto, and everybody's asking like Pasternak and Draisaitl, all these other guys, like, what do you think about the Four Nations? They're like, we don't care. We're not playing. I mean, it is weird to think like standing there on the ice at Amalie Arena and looking at Victor Hedman like, oh, he's going. And then looking at Nikita Kucherov and Andrei Vasilevsky going, well, they're going to have some time off. Is it a little weird that, like, I understand like what's going on in the world, but is it weird that some of the best players in the league will not be participating in this?
But it's not, though, because like you said, it's about what's going on in the world, and it's it wasn't the NHL and the NHLPA that necessarily was like, we don't want Russians here. It was Finland and Sweden and other countries that were going to potentially participate in a World Cup saying, look, as Vladimir Putin is marching through Ukraine towards us, like, we'd rather not participate in a tournament that involves these guys. And so there was a lot of pressure initially on how to handle the Russian situation. And ultimately it was to just leave them out, and in the process, leave out the Czechs, leave out the Swiss, leave out other countries that would have been part of a World Cup. I guess the only weird part about it for me, and I understand why they did it, because they didn't simply want it to be this narrow, but the tournament exists for two reasons. It exists to try to get people excited for 2026 when the NHL goes back to the Winter Olympics in Italy. And then it exists so USA can play Canada. Let's be honest. Like, there is a game at Bell Center on a Saturday night that is going to be a massive, massive deal for hockey, crossing over to casual fans. Casual fans in the United States who don't watch hockey know two things. They know three things: the Stanley Cup, gritty, and USA versus Canada. And so we're going to get that once, maybe twice in this tournament. The weird part about it for me is, like, why not just make it a Ryder Cup? Like, why not just have like 3 games between USA and Canada and not involve Sweden or Finland? But I guess when there's that much money in international broadcast rights, when you do get the opportunity to have Barkov and Hedman and you know, Pettersson and all these big Swedish players in the tournament as well, like, you want to capitalize on that. But this is all about the USA and Canada. This is all about McDavid versus Matthews and all of these generational talents facing each other for the first time.
Yeah, people in Tampa are very conflicted, going, what team do we root for? Like,
I'm conflicted.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is going on here? Like, yeah, you're going to have to root against Cooper Surly Hagel if you're, you know, true American down here in the Bay Area. Before we get to Lightning Talk, let's get to the number one story today in the National Hockey League and what's going on with Jacob Trouba and the Rangers. As a kid that grew up on Long Island, I was rooting for the Rangers. I had a feeling that this was going to go sideways, Greg, in the offseason when you're trying to trade your captain. And, you know, I got a chance to be very close and be friends with Ryan Callahan down here when he got traded, and speaking to him through the entire process. He's like, Jay, it's like, you can't describe it. You know, you think you're going to be a Ranger for life, and then all of a sudden I'm having a conversation about why Ryan McDonough is going to be the next captain for the team, right? Like, it's crazy. Like, you don't even think about things like that. But you had to know the writing's on the wall when Trouba, they're talking about trading the captain. Like, how can you be successful as a team when it seems like they don't want the guy that's supposed to be your leader on the squad? Like, that's not a recipe. It's hard enough to win in the National Hockey League when you have all of those guys set in place. But when you have your leadership, and it doesn't seem like Mika or Chris Kreider want anything to do with being the captain or anything to do with when things go wrong, taking responsibility. And then Trouba's like, all right, well, I'll step up, but people don't even want him there. It's weird for a team that's has such a collection of talent, but they're just so discombobulated. How do you think this thing ends?
Well, the vibes were off. I don't think it's necessarily them trying to trade Trouba. Like, the guys in that locker room and in any NHL locker room know inherently it's a business. And so, you know, you do your business, which is to get trade protection in your contract, which Trouba did. He's got a 15-team no trade clause, had a full no movement clause before July 1st. So he did his business and was able to kind of impact what they wanted to do with him in the summer. But then when they don't find a way to trade him or don't find a way to get him off the roster, well, now you have this festering wound in your locker room. And I think the dark cloud has been over Trouba all season. He got 6 assists. He's a minus player. He's playing 20 minutes a night. He's not been himself. Like, when's the last big Trouba hit you remember this season? I don't think there's been one. You combine that with the way they handled Barclay Goodrow, a guy that obviously Lightning fans know pretty well. 3 years left on his contract. They said, we want to trade you. He's like, I don't think so. And then they're like, all right, you're on waivers. And by the way, San Jose is claiming you. No contract for Shesterkin. You know, just a lot of really bad vibes things that happen with this team in the offseason. And then at the minute they hit a skid this year, losing, I think it's like 7 out of 8 in regulation. Then everything kind of starts to spiral, and they send out the memo saying everybody's available, mentioning Trouba, mentioning Chris Kreider. And now we come to today where Trouba, for those that don't know, Trouba's not playing tonight against the Penguins for roster management reasons, which essentially means that there you have a bunch of trades on the table for him, and he's going to have to pick one. And if he doesn't pick one, then he's going to get the Barclay Goodrow treatment.
It's crazy. I mean, in a guy like Chris Kreider, I know he mentioned today that he's not going to talk about the whole Trouba thing or Team USA until later. I mean, I also want to point out that I don't know if Kreider's really been the same since I posted that picture of him picking hats off of his front lawn that went viral during the playoffs. Shout out to your ESPN compatriots that completely spelled mine. I don't know who Jay Recher is, but yeah, close enough. Emily showed me some love, so I was pretty happy about that. But yeah,
I mean, in fairness, they barely spell my name correctly, and I've worked there since 2017. Now, granted, I think mine's a little bit more complicated than yours.
It is.
It's just, it happens.
100%, man. So, I mean, let's say he does get moved to, where do you think he would go?
I still think Detroit is probably the most logical destination. That was where he was rumored to be going in the offseason. It didn't come to fruition. They're clearly a team that needs a big shakeup themselves. I think they could certainly use a veteran like him on their blue line, and they might have to move a few things around on their cap to make it work. But he's the kind of veteran leadership type that I think that team could use. What's fascinating about that, though, is I wonder if order to make the money work, they end up sending Patrick Kane back to the Rangers.
Wow.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that could be something that we see to make the money work. And then also, don't forget, one of the problems with the Rangers right now is the ineffectiveness and the unhappiness of Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. Well, Patrick Kane was their winger when he was there after they signed him like mid-season a couple seasons ago after his big hip surgery. And I thought he played pretty well with them. So I wonder, it'd be kind of amazing if Trouba goes out and then Kane comes back and the Rangers attempt to solve a problem that they've had with their top line. And meanwhile, kind of clearing out a player they no longer want in Trouba.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see, where that could, end up going with Trouba. It's like, you don't always see your captains get traded unless you're a captain of the New York Rangers. Then really nothing's off the table. Speaking of captains, what's going on with my buddy Stamkos and the Predators out there, Greg? I mean, I watched their games and it just you'll go get a drink, you come back, they're down 2-0. It's just like they can't get out of their own way. I was looking at this team going, holy smoke, Shea, Marchessault, Stamkos. I'm a huge Roman Josi. I love Ryan O'Reilly. We saw what he did for Toronto a couple years ago against the Lightning in that first round. He like single-handedly helped get them over the hump out of their first round demons. But man, anything that could go wrong seems like it's gone wrong. They've got the goalie. Is it Brunette? Is it like, what is it? Is it a bad, combination with these guys? Because it's not working.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of like spiraled to the point where now the pressure is unbearable in trying to make the offensive work. I mean, UC Saros has been all right. I don't think it's necessarily on him. Defensively, this team was never all that great, but it certainly hasn't helped their cause this year. The problem's the offense, which I think is the worst in the league right now, which is insane when you think about them adding Stamkos and Marchessault to an Andrew Brunette team that did pretty well offensively. I think they were around top 10 last year in goals per game. So the only thing I could tell you is that sometimes it's really hard to graft someone else's DNA onto your own. It sounds like a Michael Crichton novel all of a sudden. But,
we got James Patterson down here.
So you're taking Stamkos, you're taking Marchessault, you're putting them on a team that plays a specific offensive style. You've got a bunch of younger guys there. They did pretty well for themselves. And the pieces just don't fit for whatever reason. The power play malfunctions. You're losing games. You're not scoring. You're last in the league in offense. And I just think it got to a point where now, like, everyone's gripping their stick. Like, there's no clear way out of it. And I guess the only glimmer of hope for them, and the reason I don't think that they've necessarily punted on the season, is that this is a team that put together the best winning streak of the season last year. Like after they were told they couldn't go see U2 at the Sphere in Vegas, they cracked off like 17 games where they were unbeatable, and it catapulted them into the playoffs. So knowing that the team has the potential to do that, I think is probably keeping the flame lit that this could be a salvageable season. But otherwise, I mean, it is a disaster. There's no bigger disaster this season than the Nashville Predators.
Greg, what are your thoughts from where you sit I know we got a chance to catch up a couple of weeks ago at Amalie, but from afar, what have you seen from the Lightning other than the 8-1 drubbing last night? Everybody that made the Four Nations seems to want to score goals. But from afar, and winning that game also without Nikita Kucherov, which is, a nice thing. But from what you see, what can you tell us about the Bolts?
Yeah, I mean, this pedal down offense that they've had this season, where I think that last glance, second of the league in goals per game. Obviously, scoring 8 kind of helps out that average a little bit, but they've just been so impressive offensively. That top line obviously hasn't missed a beat with the personnel change. Hagel's had an incredibly effective season, and they're getting contributions throughout. For me, that's the biggest story. I think defensively, they probably still have a little bit of work to do. But they've really asserted themselves early in a division where obviously, Florida's doing Florida things. Toronto's been great, even without Matthews, to be as good as they've been. And now Boston's kind of seemingly figured themselves out after firing Montgomery under their interim coach, Joe Sacco. So again, the top 4 in the division remain the top 4 in the division. But I think the Lightning have done a good job of banking some points early in what's still a pretty competitive space in the Atlantic.
Greg, before I let you go, I got to ask you a wrestling question. Come on, buddy. You know the deal. What is the next step in the bloodline narrative, and what do you think the favor is that CM Punk is going to ask from Paul Heyman? And
Well, don't you think it's a take on Roman? Like, it has to be, right?
Maybe. I think it's too obvious, though, man. I think it might be a little bit too obvious where it's like, all right, it's going to be the last 2 guys in the Royal Rumble, and Paul's going to be like, shake my hand and then pull him over, kind of like what we saw in the Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Sid Royal Rumble back in the day.
But you talk about obvious, like Heyman turning to help CM Punk is. I mean, you might as well take out a Times Square billboard at this point. It's so obvious. We all anticipate that's going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen, because it'd be quite satisfying to see that be the way that they go with it. But I don't know. I did the Lapsed Fans Guide to Survivor Series, and that helped me catch up on some of the insanely complicated familial things that have happened in that rivalry and in the Bloodline feud over the last several months. It's still a very compelling story. I am at that point, though. Don't you kind of feel a little NWO Black and White, NWO Wolfpack right now with this story? Like where is it all going? How is it going to resolve? We've split it up. They're feuding. I'm intrigued to see. I mean, the Punk stuff could obviously spice this thing up, and then you can circle back eventually to Roman and Cody. But we're at a point where I'm like, all right, I hope that we have some plan in place here, because it could get a little unwieldy if not.
Yeah, you're right. We're like 2 steps away from seeing, was it Scott Norton fighting Conan for the battle of Black and White and Black and Red supremacy. I'm just waiting for this edition's version of Sting coming out and going, oh yeah, I'm joining the Black and White, and then tear off his shirt and joining Luger in the Black and Red.
There's a proud tradition of Rhodes family members making ill-advised heel turns in the NWO feud. So we'll see what happens.
You got that right. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, Wyshynski on Twitter /X. Greg, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for your time. Be well, my friend.
Anything for you, man. Take care.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you. Good stuff. Greg Wyshynski, the man, ESPN. It was so great to see him a couple weeks ago at Amalie Arena. And it's funny because he and I were talking about working for corporations. He was working for ESPN, he's working for ESPN. I was working for iHeart at the time. And we were just like talking about the whole thing, me not having any idea what my future was going to hold. All of a sudden, here we are weeks later, and it's a month out since no longer being there at iHeart and DAE. But man, again, still no ill vibe, still no ill will on my end at all, guys and girls. That has not changed one bit, nor will it ever. So please continue to support local. We have Marc Topkin on, of course. Support the Tampa Bay Times, right? Sign up for them. Every little bit helps. Check out the e-editions online, tampabay.com/sports. Whether it's Marc Topkin, Rick Stroud, Eddie Encina, John Romano, the whole crew, Joey Knight, please go support them. Support my guys at DA, Pat and Aaron in the morning with Casey Warner, and then, of course, Tom Krasnicki and Chris Mathis in the afternoon. Nick Wise leading the way over there. Please, guys, help them out. Again, no ill will here. Not their fault why the decision was made. The more local, the better, right? We need to make sure that Tampa is still a place where people can go and talk some great sports. I know everybody out there that you're tuning in right now, you're tuning in for some local stuff. But it's aggravating, I know, when you're listening to whether it's a Dan or a Colin, and you don't want to listen to whether it's NBA talk or just rational or just national NFL talk. That's why we're here. We're focused on the local stuff. 1 o'clock, Rick Peckham is going to join us to talk some Lightning hockey. 1:20, my guy, Ira Kaufman, Joebucsfan. We're going to talk some Buccaneer football. And then 1:40, Forrest Lasso, Tampa Bay Rowdies. Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. Just got the word a little while ago that I will be in the building this Sunday at 1 p.m. for that game. The 2-10 Raiders, the 6-6 Buccaneers. People have asked, hey, are you still going to be able to go to these games? Yes, still getting approved for my credentials for these teams. And for that, I cannot thank the teams here locally enough. They don't have to do that. But after being at iHeart for 10 years and them knowing that I'm still going to be doing things like this, the Jay Recher podcast, I've got a lot more things in the works for 2025. So I appreciate all the teams here locally for continuing to credential me to these events. And again, I will be there Sunday at Raymond James Stadium as the Buccaneers take on the Raiders. Want to be very interactive here on the program as well. So what are your thoughts about the Bucs heading into that game against the Raiders? Some of your big takeaways, some of your big questions, concerns, comments. Feel free to leave them there on the screen, whether you're watching on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitter. Get those questions in, get those comments in right now, and I'll read them for you on the program. I want to get right now into my 10 thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So here are my 10 thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number one, maintaining balance at the running back position is paramount. I know there's a lot of people that are saying Bucky should get the lion's share of the load. I don't disagree with that. But let's not forget about Rachaad White. The balance is important. One thing we know about Rachaad White is he's extremely durable. He's played a 17-game season, and he's going to be able to do a little bit of everything. He can run, he can catch a ball out of the backfield, and he's good in pass protection. So let's not go overboard trying to overload a rookie. Bucky Irving is still a rookie. He's a dynamic runner, no doubt about it. 100%. He's probably more athletically gifted than Rachaad. But you need a full complement of players if you're going to make it to the playoffs and another deep postseason run. Just look back at some of these other teams that have had to deal with it. It's not easy. It's a very delicate balance. Look at the team that won last night, the Detroit Lions. What have we seen the last 2 years? Everybody saying, more Jahmyr Gibbs, more Jahmyr Gibbs, more Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, David Montgomery's a damn good running back himself. He's got 12 touchdowns this year. He's still averaging over 4 yards a carry. At the end of the day, it's more important to have a good offensive line and a good play caller, right, than it is to go nuts over making sure that you have your younger running back getting 30 shares a game or 30 touches a game. Take it easy. That is, to me, not the most concerning thing right now as far as divvying up the shares between Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. It is an imperfect science, and it's something that Liam Cohen, I think, has done a really good job. And I thought that was one of the biggest strengths of what Liam did last week against the Carolina Panthers. A lot of things didn't go the Buccaneers' way, but I thought the balance, for the most part, for Liam Cohen was really good. And look at who had the run in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal. It wasn't Bucky Irving, and I know he wasn't 100%. It was Rachaad White. We know Bucky dealing with a little bit of a hip injury. We know Bucky's got some issues with his foot. No reason to go crazy here. And you have Sean Tucker waiting in the wings. So let's not freak out about the differentiation when it comes to the touches at the running back position. You got multiple guys that can do the job. Number two, can we please show some love to the tight ends blocking? All you kept hearing going into the season was it's not just the offensive line, it's the tight ends that need to do a better job. I got a chance to speak to Kate Otten before the season, and he said the same thing. We take that upon ourselves. We look at this situation and go, we have to do our part. And I want to take my hat off to not just him, but of course, Keith. And how about Payne Durham? Look back, and I retweeted something a little bit earlier. You can go back, not right now, after the show on Twitter. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN, former NFL quarterback, did a great 3-minute breakdown of what Liam Cohen is doing when it comes to the pre-snap motion and how they're utilizing these tight ends and these guards that are pulling to help open up lanes in the running game. It was one of the best breakdowns that you're going to see. And I'm pretty sure that it was one of the runs. Yeah, I think it was the run for Bucky late in the fourth quarter down the right sideline. And just look at the block that Payne Durham had on the defensive tackle. It was top notch. He smoked that dude. And for a guy going into his career here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's just a pass catching tight end. He's not going to give you much when it comes to blocking in the running game or in the passing game. Kudos to Payne Durham for realizing if he is going to see some action on the field, it's not just going to be because of his pass catching ability. It's going to be because he has to block first and foremost. So for all the talk about the running backs and for all the talk about the offensive linemen, let's not forget about the improved blocking from the tight ends for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 3, the red zone efficiency is staggering. This year, the Buccaneers have scored touchdowns on nearly 67% of their red zone chances. Do you know what it was last year? It was one of the worst in the NFL. In the NFL, just a hair over 48%. So last year, 67%. This year, 67%. Last year, one of the worst in the NFL, just a hair over 48%. They have the largest improvement out of any team in the National Football League. Thank you very much to Liam Cohen for that one. But we have seen the last couple of weeks that numbers drop down. We've seen it in some of the closer games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, including that game against the San Francisco 49ers, where, and I think you saw it on that one drive last week against Carolina at the end of the game, Liam Cohen is still trying to figure that part of the game out, right? At times. Not all the time, because I said the numbers have gotten better, but in crucial moments of these games, the Buccaneers have to make sure that the right plays are called in the red zone at the end of games. If they do that, if they can continue firing on all cylinders in the red zone, just at the clip they've been doing all year long, where they're tied for 4th in the National Football League, watch out, because this team is going to continue to put up numbers. Number 4, who's got the most receptions in the NFL this year? Do you know? Is it Justin Jefferson? Is it Jamar Chase? Is it Tyreek Hill? Nope. It's Brock Bowers. Yes, the Las Vegas Raiders rookie tight end that the Buccaneers are going to see this weekend at Raymond James Stadium. You have to keep this guy in check. The way that he's able to run routes, the way that he's able to make contested catches, he is a guy that is so gifted beyond his years. He does not look like a rookie. I mean, you could argue he's been the best tight end in football this year. He's got 84 catches for a team that's 2-10. He's 4th in the league in receiving yards. He's not just having a good year for a rookie tight end. He's having a great year for any type of tight end, any football player. And you wonder if a tight end is going to be able to take the success that he had in college and have it in the National Football League. I mean, there's a great example in Atlanta where Kyle Pitts, as good as he was with the Florida Gators, not necessarily the same in the NFL. But Brock Bowers, an absolute beast, a monster there with Georgia, he's doing the same damn thing for the Las Vegas Raiders. He is a guy that you have to certainly keep an eye on this Sunday. And that is a position at times for Buccaneers fans that just makes you shudder, right? Because we've seen it. We've seen tight ends just roast this team over the last 10, 15 years. So let's hope that the game plan that Todd Bowles puts into place really is able to limit his productivity and his impact on the game. Watch out for Lavonte David. If he's the guy that takes that challenge, that is going to be a fun matchup to watch. Lavonte David, right? Playing in the league for more than a decade against a rookie tight end for the Raiders, that is going to be key. Number 5, Mike Evans, nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So well deserved for what that man has been able to do here in the Tampa Bay area and in his hometown of Galveston, Texas. If you didn't see the video of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers revealing to him that he was the nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, you have to go check it out on all the Buccaneers social media platforms. He's sitting there at Raymond James Stadium, and he's going through some of his greatest catches, greatest touchdown grabs. And all of a sudden, here comes Chris Godwin on the screen, talking about Mike Evans, talking about the impact that he's had here since he's been a pro. It was just a really cool moment. And to see the look in Mike's eyes when Chris Godwin was saying all of those great things about him and revealing that he was the nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. It's one of the best things that you're going to see on social media all year long. I think the Walter Payton Man of the Year award is one of, if not the best individual award that any of the 4 pro sports give out in this country. I love that they denote it by, if you've won it, you actually wear the award on your jersey. I love that. I think we should do more things like that in pro sports. Let's commend guys that are good sports. Let's commend guys that do great things in the community. And let's not have it be a one-off. It seems like we only really talk about the good things on a national scale when there's a big purpose, right? Like my cause, my cleats. We see that, right? We hear it now, the Walter Payton Man of the Year. But let's have that be more part of the discussion rather than everything else. Like we hear it locally, and I think you understand locally what your players are all about and what they do. We know what, let's say, like a guy Victor Hedman does with the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Humane Society, what Mike Evans does, and all the other players here in the Tampa Bay area. But do people out west know what Mike Evans does? Like, I hope that they do. I really do, because he certainly has earned it, and that would be so great if he was the winner for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I think that would be a incredible honor and very well deserved. Number 6, the Raiders nominee for said award, Max Crosby. The D end is playing his ass off for a team that's 2-10. This team is not very good, guys. It's not, regardless of who the quarterback is. But if you turn on the tape for any game of the Las Vegas Raiders this year, you see Max Crosby playing like his hair is on fire. His motor has not stopped all season long. He is a guy that, regardless of the score, regardless of the competition, regardless of the record, he's not looking for the easy way out. He's not sitting there pouting, moaning, and groaning, bitching, complaining. My team sucks. Like, he's not happy that he's losing, but it's not because of him. And he wants to be part of the solution, not sitting here and complaining and being part of the problem. He is a guy, don't let him get in a groove in this game. When you're playing a team like the Raiders, they don't have as many players, obviously, in the skill positions, or just overall, like, they don't have as many big-time players, game changers. But Max Crosby is one of them. So you have to make sure, even though the offensive line did a really good job last week, I thought, against the Carolina Panthers, this is a different animal with a guy like Max Crosby. So be aware. Don't let him be the guy that beats you. Number 7. Let's go to the other side. Calling Yaya Diaby. Yaya, I love the effort. I love the consummate professional that you are, but you've got 2 sacks on the year. You haven't had one since the first quarter of the game against the Ravens back on October 21st, where you were scot-free and you just absolutely waylaid Lamar Jackson. I don't think this is a lack of effort thing. I don't think this is one of those things where he's not trying, or he's not playing a ton, or he's dealing with an injury. I just don't think he is succeeding in what a lot of people thought he was going to be able to do, and that's sack the quarterback. And I know the TFLs are there. I know the pressures are there. But, guys, we need to see production from that spot. You go back the last 4 or 5 weeks, you see 1 sack from Anthony Nelson, 1 sack from Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, a handful of sacks from a guy like Elijah Cansey. You see a random sack from a Greg Gaines in there. You see Vita get on the board as well. But you haven't seen anything from Yaya Diaby. And there was a lot of people going into the season that thought that Yaya Diaby was going to lead this team in sacks and have upwards of 10. Be one of those guys on the outside that was a game wrecker. 10, 15 sacks. Pro Bowl player. We haven't seen that from Yaya this year. I think he's been okay. But if I would have told you going into the season that through 12 games of the Buccaneers year that Yaya would have 2 sacks, you'd probably say, I don't think so. I think he's going to have more than that. Unfortunately, right now, that's where we're at with him. So hopefully, I want to make sure it was 2 and not 2.5. Where are we at here? There we go. I just want to make sure we're showing Yaya some respect here on the program. Yes, just 2 sacks. 2 sacks, 37 tackles. Okay, total. Yeah, I mean, it's not good when Anthony Nelson has 3 and you have 2. Looking at the sack leaders for the Buccaneers, Vita Vea and Elijah Cansey tied for first with 6. Then Levante David, Logan Hall, and Anthony Nelson have 3 CJ Brewer, Yaya Diaby, JTS, and Antoine Winfield Jr. have 2. Not good enough. Not good enough. Again, not personal. Love the guy. I think the potential is there. But for this defense, you want to talk about some of the issues that the defense has, you need to have some type of pass rush on the outside. And for those that say, all right, well, they wouldn't be able to have the pressure down the middle, Kalijah and Vita, if it wasn't for the guys on the outside. Okay, I don't dispute that, but inversely, shouldn't that be true then? You have 2 stalwarts in the middle of the defense with Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea. Shouldn't that open things up in turn for the guys on the outside? No excuses. It's got to be better from Yaya Diaby. And this Sunday against the Raiders, I'm looking for him to have a big game. Number 8, 0 fumble recoveries for the Raiders this year. Only team in the league without 1 single fumble recovery. So you're not going to see a bunch of peanut punches out there. You're looking at guys that are focused on making sure that they wrap up and tackle. You have one of the best tacklers in the game with Robert Spillane out there. I already mentioned a guy like Max Crosby. Watch out for Clavon Chason, a guy that's been around the league for a couple years after being a first-round pick out of LSU. Multiple teams now. He had a sack last week against Mahomes. Just take care of the football. Take care of the football. Don't give him an easy one here because they haven't come up with a fumble recovery all year long. Number 9, hello, Jack Browning. Ladies and gentlemen of Bucs Nation, your third punter of the season after Jake Camarda and Trenton Gill, Jack Browning, the undrafted rookie out of San Diego State. He did some kicking there as well. Todd Bowles seems to be a fan from what he's seen on the practice squad. This team just needs some consistency there. We're not looking at the next coming of Ray Guy. We're not looking at Pat McAfee 2.0. Just some consistency. Just a guy that's going to be able to go in there, flip the field a little bit, not shank punts, especially on the road, especially in inclement weather. Just take it easy. Just get the ball down the field, right? Jack Browning, his audition starts Sunday against the Raiders. And then number 10, tunnel vision. Take care of business. Block out all the outside noise. This is a leader's game. And you heard Baker say it earlier this week. The Buccaneers are in playoff mode. I like that. But one thing that you're going to hear from outside of the Buccaneers locker room is what the schedule looks like down the stretch. They should be favored in every game except one. Because you look at the 5 games left on the schedule. They have the Raiders on Sunday. Then they travel cross country to play the Chargers in LA. And then the last 3 in Dallas. And then at home against Carolina and New Orleans. You cannot be looking ahead. And you can't be looking past the Las Vegas Raiders. Every single game is paramount for this team. There's really no wiggle room. And when you look at the way that Atlanta is playing, okay, because that's what it seems like your best path to making the playoffs is going to be through the division. Atlanta is scuffling big time. Their strength of schedule down the stretch is not as easy as yours is. But one way that you can kind of give them a leg up is by looking past the Raiders on Sunday and letting them hang around. This is a team that if they're feeling good about themselves, they got nothing to lose. They're 2-10. They're playing for next year. They don't have a quarterback, right? No disrespect to Garrett Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, but they're looking to draft a quarterback with a high draft pick next year, whether it's a Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or any of the other guys that are coming out. But don't look past these guys. I know some people are like, oh, it could be a trap game. It could be. But this is the reason why you have a veteran coach in Todd Bowles and a lot of veterans on both sides of the ball so that you don't look past games like you do on Sunday. The Buccaneers have to win this one. They got to continue that march for the postseason, and let's see what they can do. It looks like a lot of guys are going to be back in the lineup, from the last couple of weeks that we've seen kind of in and out. Baker Mayfield was out there today. Tyke Smith was out there today. Bucky Irving, Mike Evans. I mean, this may be one of the healthiest Buccaneers teams that we've seen all year long against the Raiders on Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. So very, very excited to see that. Again, follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I can't believe I'm on all these social media platforms, but that is the nature of the beast. And right here on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Every single like and subscription certainly does count. How about those Tampa Bay Lightning 8-1 victory over the San Jose Sharks last night. What a great night it was there at Amalie Arena. And yeah, the 2 points are nice. All the goals are very, very, very cool. But the best moment of the night last night was finding out that this gentleman right here, alongside Brian Bradley, would be inducted into the third class for the Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Fame. It's the one and only Rick Peckham, the Wedge Master, joining us on the program. Thanks so much for joining it. You're always going to be the Wedge Master to me when you sit in the press box next to our good pal Bobby the Chief Taylor. He'll turn to me. He goes, "You'll never understand the shot Ricky hit in the wind, into the wind." Like, if you ever need somebody to talk about your golf game, Chief will be that guy for you, buddy.
Jay, it's great to be on your show, and I must say this is all very difficult for me to live up to, because at some point someone's going to say, "All right, let's see you with a wedge and see what you can do." And of course, that's the time I'll scull it over the green. But nevertheless, thank you for the nice compliments. And yes, last night was just an extra special night, and what an honor to be named to go into the Lightning Hall of Fame with Brian Bradley, who, you know, his importance, I think, through the years, you might lose track as the Stanley Cups have piled up and Hall of Fame resumes and so forth. But Brian Bradley was pretty much the straw that stirred that drink in the early years, and of course, integral into getting that first playoff spot in 1996.
Rick, and you know this as good as anybody, he's really one of one, right? He's such a unique character. And I remember a couple of years ago, he's there and he's talking to somebody and he just yells out onto the ice during morning skate, "Hey, coach, working on the stuff I see." And then coach is like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right." And he just walks away. It's like, but that's Brad's, like, he doesn't even care. Like Kucherov, because Cooch gets in his zone, he's doing his stick handling thing, and Brad just yells over the boards and he looks up and he's like, "Yeah, it's Brad's, man." He's such a trip. And I'm still glad that he's around being an ambassador for the team. He's such a good dude.
I think that's great for the Hall of Fame in its purpose, in terms of recognizing not only great players, great coaches, great management personnel, but also people who have served the organization, off the ice as well. Dave Andreychuk certainly has done that as a senior vice president for a long, long time to cap off, his great Hall of Fame playing career. And here's Brian Bradley, who for a long, long time now, over 20 years, has been affiliated with the team in a variety of departments, whether, helps out community relations. He's been big in sales and meeting with clients who, they want to get close to somebody who's been on the ice. Brian Bradley can tell the stories. He's been on the ice with Brett Hull and the greats of the game from, the 80s and early 90s and mid 90s. But just to have someone of that resume involved with the Hall of Fame, I think is tremendous.
Rick, take us through the when you found out that you were going to be inducted into the Lightning Hall of Fame.
Well, I have to go back a couple of weeks because, believe it or not, and this is going to sound very self-serving, I'm on the committee. But I didn't vote for myself. No, I didn't. And I wasn't, slipping $20 bills under the table at the committee meetings to people to vote for me or anything like that. I'm really thrilled to have sat in on that Zoom call when all the members of the committee got together. And Brian Briesman, of course, marketing and PR vice president, announced that Brad's and I would be going in. And truly, I was sitting right here in the seat and speechless. And, there was no one else in the room, unlike our in-person meetings and so forth. And it was stunning that this was going to happen. And what an honor. And really, you look back over being associated here in Tampa, it's almost 30 years for myself and my family. And it's just been such a life-changing experience to come here, have the opportunity, live in Florida, live in the Tampa Bay area, be part of all the growth and great things happening here with Jeff Vinik buying the team in 2010 and all that he's done away from hockey, and be a part of just an incredible era of hockey. I don't care if you're talking about the Lightning or Tampa Bay, you're talking National Hockey League. I mean, you look back starting in really 2014 when the team made the playoffs to start the John Cooper run. It's, there's a lot of teams that be looking hard at that length of time, that era, and just shaking their heads like, wow, what a great success story.
Yeah, it's a great point that you bring up, because I feel like there's a lot of teams in the National Hockey League that would take the amount of success that the Lightning have had in the last decade. They take that over 50 years, right? I mean, to win that many cups and to be able to be that competitive year in and year out. I want to go back to when you first found out that you were going to be one of the voices of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who reached out to you? How did that whole thing come together? Was our good friend, the crazy man, as I call him, Phil Esposito, involved in that whole process?
I think he was, in the background of that whole thing. I didn't know Phil well. I'd met him just basically through interviews in my role in the media. Prior to that, I had worked with a very good friend of his and a longtime teammate, Jerry Cheevers, announcing Hartford Whaler games. Jerry, of course, the Hall of Fame goaltender. Jerry and Phil would talk every once in a while. Well, as it worked out, I had been in Hartford for 11 years, and new ownership brought some new ideas in, and Jerry saw the handwriting on the wall. He went back to the Bruins as a scout. I saw the handwriting on the wall, took a shorter contract to, move on and try to find another opportunity, which fortunately came up late in the summer as John Kelly, the original TV voice of the Lightning, was selected to be the Colorado Avalanche coach. Keep in mind that team was just moving from Quebec as the Nordiques to now the Colorado Avalanche. And I got a call one Saturday afternoon from a radio producer, God bless his soul, Joel Blumberg, worked in New York, and I knew him through my NHL contacts. He's calling me, he's producing a football game, and he calls me at halftime. He says, "Hey, I hear the Tampa Bay job's open. John Kelly got the Colorado job." So I make a quick call. I knew Jerry Helper, who at the time was the PR vice president from the original management crew that Phil had. And I knew Jerry from when he was in Buffalo. I was in Rochester. We were the farm team and so forth. And that kind of got the things moving internally with Phil and so forth. And at the last minute, here I am in Tampa. And it's been, a wonderful ride ever since.
Yeah. And Phil and I have gotten pretty close over the last 10 years. It's usually him just making fun of my shoes more than anything else. You know that. But and it's funny because we'll be up in the press box and he'll be talking with these like legends of the game, and they'll be talking to him about the most serious things. And, remember this? And he'll be like, "Look at this guy over here with his shoes." And they just, I'm the butt of the joke for Phil Esposito. That's what my life has come into, is to be the butt of his jokes. But what are some of the memories that you have with Phil? Because I mean, it's still crazy to think like he's one of the greatest players to ever adorn a pair of hockey skates. Just what are some of your favorite memories of being in and with and around him over the years?
Well, very quickly, Jay, I became a hockey fan when the Big Bad Bruins were coming into prominence in the early 70s. And so I was a huge fan of Phil, Bobby Orr, especially Jerry Cheevers, all the guys. And so to meet him just a few years later in my college days at Kent State University in Ohio, for 2 years, the NHL relocated the California Golden Seals to Cleveland, and they were known as the Barons before that franchise merged with the Minnesota North Stars and joined that organization. In any case, I'm working college radio, come up, cover the Barons home games, and the Rangers are in town with Phil. And I'm talking to Phil about their schedule. I knew they had a tough trip, and we're talking about how tough it is on the road and the team's tired and so forth. And he says, "You know what? We won 3 out of 4 so far, and I got to say we're a little bit lucky. And anybody who says you don't need luck in this game, they're full of it." Okay, that's a typical Phil response, right? Well, I work with an older broadcast prospect who has helped me put together my resume tape to go out after this year and look for jobs. And doesn't he put at the end of the tape, Phil saying, if you don't need luck, if you think you don't need luck in this game, you're full of it. That's the end of my demo tape. So Phil was right there from the beginning. And of course, just to get to know and be around him in the early years of the Lightning, when I came on board in 1995, 96, the opening of the Ice Palace. I was thinking of that last night with the fact that Brads and I were going to the Lightning Hall of Fame because Brian Bradley scored the first goal in the history of the building. Right. And I remember that game. I remember that goal vividly. And that's a huge memory for me to have through my years with the Lightning and on from there. I remember, we went to training camp in 1998, Vinny Lecavalier's first professional camp, and we were in Feldkirch, Austria for 10 days. Ended up at the end of that camp playing the Buffalo Sabres. That preseason game also marked the return of John Cullen, who had been out, obviously afflicted with cancer and had beaten cancer and come back and become a player again. So there's a lot of stuff from that early years where Phil was still involved with the team that are fresh in my mind and very fond memories that I have.
Rick, what is something that you would say to a young play-by-play announcer that would help them in their journey along? I do some play-by-play stuff for USF, and I think some of the biggest things is like to let the game breathe a little bit. I think so many times they always want to feel like they have to interject something, but sometimes the crowd noise are just letting it. And mine's a little different because a lot of it is radio. But when I do some TV stuff, I really try to let the scene kind of sell itself for the most part. But especially for you, because you're also working with a partner, whether it was Chief or Brian Engblom. So what would you tell a young play-by-play guy as they're coming up through the ranks that would really help them kind of achieve what they want to achieve in the business?
Well, I've worked with 2 or 3 young broadcasters trying to break into pro hockey. They really love hockey. And I'm constantly telling them to review their work, tape everything that you do and listen back to it, because it's going to help you avoid mistakes in the future. It's going to help you develop your style. And as you listen to yourself or watch a videotape where you're doing the play-by-play, think of what the listener needs to know or the viewer needs to know as you go along through the play. It's not only Jay Recher has the puck and he's passing to Rick Peckham. Maybe he's broken up. Hey, the pass was broken up at the line. Well, who did it? Be cognizant of what the viewer or the listener needs to know, and just try to be on top of things. But you bring up a great point, letting the game breathe, because I think what we see now and hear now is a lot of people falling into stories and storylines that they and the producers have figured out before a game actually unfolds. And, I think people really want to concentrate on the game as it's unfolding. So I think those are important things to remember.
Yeah, I think that's the balance, right? Because, Doc Emmerich was a guy that I think a lot of hockey fans, miss. But he would always it would be an interjection of some of these things, the way that he would say, pitchforks the puck into the zone. Like he'd use a different word to be able to use rather than just dump the puck in the zone. He'd have a short story, but he'd get in and he'd get out. And I've noticed that too, where it just seems like there's a narrative that goes into what the broadcast is going to be. And it seems to kind of override rather than just telling the story of the game. A lot of the times the game is the story in itself rather than what the narrative is supposed to be, right?
Right. I mean, the game isn't necessarily going to follow those storylines. So you have to let the game unfold and like you say, let the game breathe. Whenever, in all the years that I did games, whenever I would kind of drift into a story and try to embellish a particular play or a player's background or something like that, wouldn't you know, great shot on goal, big save, but something big in the game would happen and I'd end up looking like, I got caught with my pants down, basically. You missed the play. And that's the last thing a play-by-play announcer wants to do.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Going back to your Hartford days, because I watched a lot of Hartford Whalers growing up in the Northeast. And who is your favorite player to either work with or to call their games up during your Whalers days?
Wow, that's a good question. That crew that the Whalers had in the mid to late 80s was a very good team. And whether it was a Hall of Famer like Ron Francis, who was the captain of the team, just one of the all-time nicest people you would ever want to meet, just a classy individual. He would certainly be up there. Joel Quenneville, who was, a real clubhouse leader and just a fun guy to be around. Kevin Dineen, Dean Evison, who's still involved in the game, Dave Tippett, all these guys. And I think somebody came up with a great fact with the number. It was like 15 members of the team from, in a 3-year stretch in the mid to late 80s were present in the game as a coach, as a manager, in any type of role, which really kind of demonstrated their mental acuity in terms of their hockey knowledge and hockey smarts, because they were still involved in the game. They had some characters like Ulf Samuelsson, and you had Ray Ferraro, who I could tell right from his rookie year, this guy could be a sportscaster because he followed all sports. He wanted to talk Red Sox all the time because he was a big Sox fan. I guess that's a natural outgrowth from growing up in Trail, British Columbia. I don't see the connection there, but Ray was a great guy to be around. It was just a dressing room full of very interesting characters who were a lot of fun to be around.
Come on, you don't know there's a or a Carl Yastrzemski fan club in Trail, British Columbia, Rick? Before I get you out here, I want to ask you one question. If you had to put together a foursome from your hockey travels, so it could be hockey broadcasters, hockey players, hockey coaches, you and 3 people. Now, you could put the team together to either have a great time or to like win a scramble or something like that. That is up to you. But give me 3 people through your hockey career that you would decide to play with in a foursome.
Well, I would have to start with Chief locally for many reasons. Number one, he's a lot of fun on the golf course. If you've ever played golf with him, Jay, you'd know. Never a dull moment. Number two, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school that, Chief is 70 or older, which, as you know, in golf, you can play the forward tees if you're in a scramble. He absolutely blisters the ball. I mean, his drives are as far now as people 20 years younger than him. So you'd want Chief on the team for many reasons. I'd want Jerry Cheevers on the team because he was known as the first money goalie, because when the chips were down, he'd get the big save. They won 2 Stanley Cups with Jerry backstopping the Bruins. So at crunch time, if there was money on the line, Jerry was going to come up with a big shot. And once again, you're not going to find a more entertaining person to play golf with than Jerry Cheevers. Absolutely 9 years with him. We had so much fun, and I have so many stories from those days. Not necessarily our stories, but stories that he told about, the kind of the gas house gang of that era for sure. But Cheesy would have to be in that foursome as well. And, boy, kind of stumped here on the third one. Brian Engblom's a lot of fun to play with, and he really works on his game too. So I mean, there's a guy that we enjoyed our 5 years together in the booth, and he's gone on and done very well since with Dave Randorf and just keeps rolling. I think Brian would be a guy we'd throw in there too.
So there's your foursome: Rick Peckham,
Yes.
Bobby Chief Taylor, Jerry Cheevers, and Brian Engblom. That is an incredible foursome. Rick, thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. I'm so happy for you. Well-deserved Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Famer to join your Hall of Fame induction for the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. It couldn't happen to a better person, my friend. One of the true voices of the Tampa Bay Lightning and just an all-around fantastic individual. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much. And congratulations again. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Jay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you when I do come to the press box and venture up there from the seats. But it's been an honor and such a pleasure all these years representing the Lightning now in retirement, but all those years in the booth. And I'm very, very proud to be going into the Lightning Hall of Fame. Thank you.
You got it, pal. Thank you so much. And hit him straight, my friend.
All right.
Thanks, pal. The one and only Rick Peckham. My goodness. Hall of Famer. My man. We're lucky, man. We are so lucky to have so many fantastic personalities here in the Tampa Bay area. And Rick Peckham, it just does not get better than that. Salt of the earth type of dude. Every single time he steps into the press box, so eloquently named after him, everybody is so happy to see him. People are happy to see this guy too every once in a while. The one and only, if you want to make it into the Hall of Fame here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is the guy that needs to go up there and wax poetic about your career. It's the one and only Ira Kaufman from our friends over at Joebucsfan. What's up, brother? How are you?
Jay, can you hear me, Jay? Can you hear me?
I can. The technology is working.
Jay, first of all, congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you, sir.
I'm hoping I see you Sunday at the Bucs game.
Oh, I'll be there Sunday, 1 p.m. We got a lunch date, buddy. We know Corey Long and Catherine Smith and Dittler. If we can get Dittler out of the caves from somewhere, maybe we can get him out there. But yes, buddy, we have to catch up for sure.
And I usually take a beating at that table, Jay. You're the only one. You're the only one who backs me up. By the way, I've played golf with Rick Peckham. Number one, he's really good around the greens. Very, very good on the short game. I'm stunned he didn't name me as one of the more interesting players that he's played with, because if the ball's within 20 feet, I go to pick it up. That's what I do. I pick it up. And one time we were playing, I think, in West Chase, and we were at the 16th fairway or something. And then I see Larry Hirsch. Larry Hirsch, the long-time previous radio voice. And he lives over there, and he came out at his pool deck, and he had a Speedo on. And then I tried to hit the ball after that, and there was no chance. Speaking of retirement, my friend, I know you don't like it, but I'm heading that way. You know,
come on. No, don't say that. Hold on. Joebucsfan put up Sage Ira up next right now. You can subscribe to the Ira Kaufman podcast if you want to hear him completely unleashed twice a week. New episode later on today. You're not retiring. What are you going to do? Kaufman take more cruises, go on more vacations?
I'm taking guitar lessons, Recher. I'm taking
acoustic or electric? What are you, Jimi Hendrix?
No, I'm working on my first song, Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers. So look out.
Jeez.
Look out, baby.
A modern day Jim Croce over here, Ira Kaufman.
By the way, Jay, I went to breakfast today, and I brought a couple of my tennis guys breakfast. I can't believe I did it, but I did. And they're both New York Giants fans, Jay, as you are. And I happen to mention, they were talking about the Hall of Fame, pro football. I happen to mention Eli Manning's name, Jay. And I said, I don't think he's getting in year one. They went crazy. They almost threw their omelet at me, Jay. They couldn't believe it. I don't know where you stand on it, but I don't know that he's a slam dunk first ballot guy. I don't know that.
It's funny that you bring this up. So I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday about, if you remember the conversation that we had about 3 years ago with our good pal D. Orlando Ledbetter about Terrell Owens. And about one of the big reasons why he didn't get in. The numbers were there, but he was one of the few guys, as you guys told me, didn't have any players, no coaches, no media on his side. Bad relationships everywhere, and that's why it took so long for him to get in. You're talking about a guy that's NFL royalty in Eli Manning. You beat the greatest quarterback of all time 2 times, right? It's not just a one-trick pony. He had one magical Joe Flacco, Nick Foles, Brad Johnson, Ched Dilfer. He went to the dance twice and stole the prom queen from the star quarterback and was able to come away with the victory. Super Bowl MVP both times. He was never the greatest quarterback in the league. He was never the top 3 or the top 5 quarterback in the league. He's the ultimate enigma, Ira, because I've seen the guy make some of the greatest throws of all time, and I've also seen him throw the ball at a wide receiver's feet, something that you wouldn't see from a JV quarterback down at Lato High School. So I think he is one of the most fascinating cases when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I just feel like he's got enough good energy and enough good vibes and enough, well wishes from your compatriots that he's going to get in on the first ballot. But I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't. What are some of your colleagues saying?
Some of them are very skeptical, Jay, to be honest. Now, Gary Myers, Gary Myers.
Oh, he loves him.
Mm-hmm. He's going to probably make the presentation for Eli. And he's mad that Everson Walls didn't, get in as as a semifinalist from the modern day. But anyway, Jay, and Gary's going to do a good job. He did a good job with Joe Colecco a couple of years ago when he was borderline and got in. So, it's not going to be from lack of trying from Gary Myers. His career record is 500, Jay. I mean, dead even, absolutely dead even. But you make some great points. One, he beat a team that had the Patriots won that game would have been considered the greatest team in NFL history. I don't think anybody would have argued that.
Right.
But I can counter that with this, Jay. Now, you saw the game. Who gets the credit? Eli Manning or the Giants defense in that game? That's arguable. The MVP went to the quarterback, as it usually does, Jay. He made that incredible escape to Tyree. And then in the second time around, it was that great pass to Manningham. That was a beautiful, gorgeous pass. So
but that's what you need, Ira. You need those seminal moments, right?
Yeah, and Rondé had that. Rondé had that. Yeah,
exactly. So those kind of things are going to help you because remember, not only did he make the throw to Tyree in that first Super Bowl, but he also threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Plaxico Burress.
Yeah.
He also had a big third down conversion on that drive to Steve Smith down the sideline. And then in that game against, obviously the second game, the pass to Manningham. So that helps his case. That's why it's such a fascinating, intricate type of dialogue between people that think he should be in and people that should. And that's the crazy thing, Ira. It's should he be in or shouldn't be in? And there's also another level of should he be in or should he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? That's a wild conversation.
Jay, I've been doing it for 20 years in Canton. I took over for the late, great Tom McEwen, and he didn't want the Tribune to lose the spot, so he recommended me, and they put me on. So I've been there since 2005. Jay, I'll tell you one thing that I know for sure about the Eli Manning situation. We're going to do it on a Zoom call, which we've done for 3 or 4 years. I like to go in person like we used to, but since COVID, we've been doing it on a Zoom call. It'll be in about a month, and it's a 7 or 8 hour Zoom call, Jay, because there's a lot of names to get through, at least 15 modern day, plus the other people. Jay, I'll tell you this one thing that I know for sure. Whenever Eli Manning's presentation comes up, and it could be number 1 out of the modern day, it could be number 15 out of the modern day. When I did SAP that year, it was number 14 out of 15. The only guy behind me was Michael Strahan with Bob Glauber. Here's what I know for sure, Jake. It's going to take an hour just to talk about Eli Manning. Yeah. It's going to talk. It's going to take an hour because, like I said to you, the skeptics are going to look at the 500 record, the body of work. You got to acknowledge the 2 Super Bowls. And by the way, Jay, to be fair to Manning, it wasn't just the Super Bowls. He played very well during those postseason runs. Right. The Green Bay game, right, Jay? You remember that?
Yeah, he beat Rodgers and Brett Favre in Lambeau. He beat Dallas the one year after they lost 2 regular season games to Dallas. He goes into Dallas and beats the Cowboys. The second time they beat the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. So it wasn't like he just showed up in the big time games.
And Jay, in 2007, and I was at the game, obviously, they started their postseason run right here in Tampa. It was Gruden's next to last year. The Bucs had a pretty decent team. And the Bucs got off to a great start in the first quarter. Ernest Graham was running wild. He must have had 50 yards rushing after 15 minutes. I think the Bucs were up 7-0. And then, Jay, in his inimitable style, Gruden started throwing the ball with Jeff Garcia. And the Giants had a really good defense, as you know. And, who was that big running back they had? Guy weighed about
Jacobs.
Yeah, he just wore the Bucs down. But that's when the playoff run started. And they won the game handily, I think 24-7.
Let's get this going into the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The defensive coordinator for that Giants team in 2007, Steve Spagnuolo, who is now the DC for your big Kansas City Chiefs. Isn't it crazy? All these years later, he's he might go in as an assistant coach one day.
That's right.
Spags.
Right.
And on that team, you had Justin Tuck, you had Hugh Manura, you had Michael Strahan, and then later on, the group had Jason Pierre-Paul, who, of course, helped the Buccaneers win their second Super Bowl trophy about 4 years ago. Let's talk a little Buccaneer football. Kaufman, last week against the Carolina Panthers, certainly wasn't a Picasso, as I like to say, but a win is a win. This team's back to 500. more concerned with how that game went, or more just like, hey, you won, put it in the rear view, let's focus on the future?
You know, Jay, this is really getting interesting with the NFC South. Forget about the wild card. I'm not interested in the wild card as far as the Bucs are concerned. I'm looking at the division. I'm looking at a fourth straight division title. Jay, I'll start it off with this right now, and you can argue with me all you want. I think by Sunday night, the Bucs are in first place.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't trust. I didn't trust Atlanta before the season. I don't trust him now. You got a guy throwing four. You're telling me, Kaufman, that they picked up a quarterback and a DN coming off of.
I hear Judon's been terrible. Terrible.
They got 15 sacks. They're last in the NFL. Cousins threw 4 interceptions last week. Like, what are we talking about? 2 guys that are not spring chickens coming off of season-ending injuries, and everybody's like, oh, let's crown them. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. What are you, nuts? They brought in Simmons, who plays the same position as Jesse Bates. You want to talk about redundancy? I mean, you brought in 3 guys that are, listen, individually on paper, heck of careers. I mean, good dudes, it seems like, but you're telling me that's going to change the difference? Kyle Pitts had as many catches as you and I did last week. Kaufman, everybody was blaming Desmond Ritter. I mean,
their draft picks have been horrible. They're getting nothing out of the draft. And here you got Graham Barton. Tyke Smith, when he's healthy, is a good player. And how much do I have to say about Bucky Irving? I mean, the guy is dynamic, Jay. He's absolutely dynamic. Every time he gets the ball, I think he's got a chance to go to the house. His cuts are very, very sharp. Very, very sharp. I'm not calling him Barry Sanders light. Forget that. There's only one Sanders. But this kid, especially since Godwin's gone, Jay, and Evans got hurt, he has kept this team afloat, I think, this kid. I'm a little worried about his hip pointer, but the Raiders stink, Jay. They got 2 elite players. They got Max Crosby, who's going to be a problem, and they got Brock Bowers, who is a problem. I loved Bowers coming out of draft, Jay. You loved Bowers coming out of draft. I remember saying if he ever slips to like mid-round 15, 16, the Bucs should go up and get him. I don't care if it cost him a second or third. Take him. I thought he might have been the best player in the draft. Jay, I'm not sure I was wrong about Bowers.
He leads the league in receptions. He's got 84 catches, which is crazy. I mean,
with no quarterback, Jay.
Nothing. Quarterback with O'Connell and Gardner Minshew doing the job. He's 4th in the league in receiving yards, which is kind of crazy. I do like Spillane, their linebacker. He's a tackling machine. Obviously, played with the Steelers. I thought that was somebody that Jason Light probably should have gave a look to during the trade deadline for some linebacker help. I know it's easier said than done. The NFL is not really like that. No fumble recoveries for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't picked up a fumble, which is kind of weird. I want to ask you about the tight ends, though, right? Cade Otton, Payne Durham, those guys, they've been blocking their ass off this year. Offensive line's improved, the play calling's improved, but I've been watching a lot in these tight ends, and especially a guy like Payne Durham, who had a huge block on the Bucky run there at the end of the 4th. It's really been a concerted effort to why this team went from dead last in the run game to a team that's one of the better running teams in the game now.
I just wrote my next column, Jay, is that's the story of the 24 Buccaneers. Plain and simple. The running game. That is the story. Now, you can delve into it and say who's responsible. And, of course, Irving's played a big role here. Because, Jay, let's face it, Rachaad White, who's had some big runs, but his, yards per carry is kind of like where it's been the last couple of years. No great improvement. Irving's made the difference. However, I don't think it's just Irving. I think it's play calling scheme for Cone, and Bredesen's been very solid. Barton's been good. I thought he was a little shaky last week. A little shaky.
Yeah, no, early on, definitely.
And the guy, Jay, the guy that I am shocked about, I might vote for him second team All-Pro. I mean, I just might. I have an AP vote at the end of the year. Get a key at right tackle. Jay, I mean, the guy is really good. Really, really good.
Have you ever seen that?
I love this Buck running game. I love it.
Have you ever seen that, Ira? I mean, because Ian Beckle's one of my really good friends, offensive line play. I look at the game completely different since being friends with him. And I don't think I've ever seen, and I don't think he's ever seen, a guy that was not good at the left guard position
That's right.
go play right tackle on an island and become pretty much a Pro Bowl caliber player. If anything, you see offensive linemen go inside because they're not good on the island. How many guards that play in the NFL were tackles in college? You never see guys go from the inside out, and you never see guys go on the inside out on the other side of the line. It's like, holy smokes. I think it's really one of the stories that doesn't get told nearly enough when it comes to the success of that offensive line.
Well said. And Jay, here's the irony. I was watching the Chiefs game last week. And by the way, I follow the Chiefs, Jay. You know that for 50 years. I go back to Otis Taylor and Len Dawson and Stram and matriculate the ball down the field, Jay. That's when I started. So I'm no late bloomer to Chiefs football. I'm not a jump on the bandwagon guy. But Jay, their tackles stink. Their offensive tackles stink, especially on the left side. I'm watching the game last week, Jay. This guy, I think his name is Waymar Morris. He was just getting beaten by a drum by the right guy coming off the right edge. Time and time again, Mahomes is getting frustrated, Jay. You don't see that very often. You don't see bad body language from Mahomes, but I saw it. You know what Reed did? He moved Joe Thuney, the left guard, to left tackle. He put in another guy at left guard and took out this Morris guy who was getting killed. But, Jay, you did that under duress, and then it was an emergency. Normally, like you said, you don't see a guard shift to tackle, and I was ready to give up on Gedeke as a draft pick. And, boy, they slotted him at right tackle, and it's really paid off.
All right, talk to me about this pass rush for the Buccaneers. Interior, it's been fantastic. When you look at Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea with 6 sacks each, but I'm worried about the outside. Yaya Diaby, no sacks since October.
You're not wrong, Jay. We talk about it all the time with my guys on the Joebucsfan podcast. All the time. Where's the edge rush? Where's the edge rush? Now, Jay, I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago. It was a little bit controversial. I got slapped around for it. My point was very simple. Bowles takes all the heat, as head coaches tend to do. Right. This is when they were 3-5, I think. And he was taking all the heat, and 4-6 maybe. And I said, well, why is Jason Light getting a pass in this respect, Jay? In this respect. Now, he's made a lot of great draft picks, include, from Winfield on down, Bucky Irving, of course. And Godwin, fantastic. However, Jay, he's whiffed on the edge rushers. He's whiffed. I'm not going to bury Braswell after 3/4 of a rookie season, but he's done nothing, Jay. He's done. And if he had anything, they'd be playing. Let's be honest. Diaby has plateaued, as you mentioned. He has. I'm concerned, as you are, about the edge rush. I think it's affecting what Bowles can do, how inventive he can be, how creative he can be. And as a result, the defense has not been very good. And Jay, I if things go awry, which I don't think they will, but if they do, it could cost Bowles his job. And Jay, when you look back on the season, why would the Glazers, look askance at Bowles? Those 2 games against Atlanta, Jay, not high check marks for the Todd Bowles checkbook. Not very good.
No, you got that right, pal. All right, before I get you out of here, how do you see the rest of this season unfolding for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They're 6-6 through 12. They got 5 games left. 4-1, 3-2. I mean, do you think they pull this thing off and win the division? Because I think they can win 4 of these last 5 games and win this division with a 10-7 record.
Here's the crazy part, Jay. And for a couple of weeks, we've all been looking at the race to 10. That was the old Raheem Morris line. Race to 10 because 10 usually gets you in the playoffs. Jay, I'm being serious here. I'm trying to be realistic. Falcons are 6-6. If the Bucs finish 9-8, I'm not sure Atlanta can go 3-2. I'm not sure about that. I think they're going to lose Sunday. So that would mean they got to go 3. I'm not sure 9 isn't going to be good enough, as it was last year. I don't think 8's going to be good enough, like 2 years ago. But right. I think the Bucs can get to 9, Jay. I don't think they'll beat the Chargers on the road. And maybe they'll stumble once more, not twice more, after the Chargers. But I think the Bucs can get to 9. If they don't, Jay, if they finish 8-9 and out of the playoffs, the Belichick rumors are going to grow loud and fast. Loud and fast.
How great would that be?
Wouldn't that be? That would keep me out of retirement, Jake. That'd keep me out of retirement.
And
I
here
think I could wear Belichick down at the podium. I think I could.
We're on to next week, Kaufman. Stop asking me these questions. The one and only Ira Kaufman. Again, subscribe to the Ira Kaufman podcast if you want to hear him completely unleashed twice a week. New episode later on today with our friends over at Joebucsfan. Ira, I love you. I appreciate you, my friend. Great work as always. I'll see you Sunday, man. I'll keep the seat warm for you.
I'll spring for a Cuban sandwich at the table, Dave.
Don't make promises you ain't gonna keep, brother. See you, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Oh man, Ira Kaufman, the Hall of Fame voice of our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been covering this team for so damn long. It is such a joy to be able to talk all things football with him. From football to football. And let's bring in our guy, one of the best bits of news we've seen all week long is that this man is re-signed. He is back with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. It's the one and only Forrest Lasso. Forrest, what is going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Jay, what's going on with you? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And we saw that, and you don't see this very often because, listen, I get a crap ton of press releases to my inbox on a daily basis. But I get the one a couple weeks ago of like all the guys coming back and Forrest Lasso, but we're looking at in contract negotiations. And I was like, you don't see that very often. But I know how much you love this place. I saw how close you were with this team, even though you didn't play because you were banged up all year long. I mean, what was the last couple of weeks like as you were just trying to figure out what the future was for you here in Tampa Bay?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, pretty easy. Like, it was more than just weeks. It was a couple months. Obviously, I got hurt May 18th. I had surgery May 23rd. Leading up, literally that night I got hurt, I had a brace. I had a career high night. So I was enjoying the wave by all means. The future was looking great. We were, hopefully going to be working on, or we were working on an extension at the moment. But when I got hurt, that kind of sidelines things for a little while. And professional sports or sports in general, life, whatever it be, the injury was what it was. I probably had like 48 hours where I was like down in the depths. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? It's up to me. It's up to no one else. I'm just going to get back to it. Obviously, the thing that you just mentioned, the contract, the future, where I would be playing, that was perpetually looming above my head. Everyone asked about it. Everyone, that was the first question. But for me, I just kind of put it to the side and just kept focusing on what I needed to. And that was just getting healthy and doing what I do and trying to be the best teammate I could for the club. I think you kind of mentioned at the beginning, this was a unique experience for me all around. It's crazy. I'm telling you, like, I've really enjoyed being hurt. That sounds so insane, I know. But like the lessons I've learned, the player that I'm growing into, so many parts of it. I don't want to ramble too long about it, but I was just focusing on being intentional with all my actions. I was trying to get healthy as quick as possible. I was trying to be there for my teammates, trying to support the club, give back to the community. I wasn't able to do what I had been doing in the past, and that was, doing the stuff on the pitch. But I'm more than just a football player. I think everyone, we all are, and I wanted to find ways to contribute. So I didn't think about the contract. Getting to your point, I didn't try to, at least, and I just focused on the day to day. And the past 2 or so weeks, once the season ended, obviously it was the only thing everyone talked about. But I've been doing this for now 11 years, and this is why you have agents. This is why you have people that you can handle this type of stuff. And I let them focus on the nitty gritty, and I just focused on getting healthy. I'm a religious man, and I believe in the universe kind of aligning itself. So I let God do his thing, I let the universe do his thing, and I knew it was going to be all right. And here we are today, and I'm more grateful than ever to be still with the Rowdies.
I'm so glad that you're here, man. It's such a great thing. And I've had this conversation with multiple athletes over the last 10 years or so. And there's such a moment of reflection at times when you become a dad that it really puts things into perspective of what being a professional athlete. Like, I never was one, so I don't know. Right. But just having these conversations, because I remember I asked a Rays player once, hey, how you look at the game, has it changed since you've been a dad? And he goes, no, it really hasn't. He came up to me 2 weeks later. He grabbed me. He's like, Jay, I got to tell you something. And he's like, what we talked about, you're right. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. I didn't even care when I went home because my kid was there. And of course, not only are you one of my favorite players, but my family loves you. The little girl, they love our girls. They love you. They were so upset when you got hurt. But when I saw the time that you had to spend with your family at this time, as your young family was growing, I was like, that's what it was about, bro. That was like, you're a religious guy. It was somebody up above going like, Forrest, now's the time for you to just be with your family right now. And it was so crazy. It was like, it brings like, it gets me emotional talking about it, bro.
Right now, I'm not going to lie. Like that has been the same thing that everyone, I mean, I said it from the beginning, like my wife was obviously, how am I going to deal with 2 under 2 when you're on the road every other weekend? You know, there was just this huge rain cloud. And there shouldn't be a rain cloud in such a positive and joyous moment in our lives, but there's the reality of like, how are we going to balance this? And, you know, what happened. And I've been the most present dad. Like I've been so grateful for everything I've had the past 6 months. And yeah, I mean, you said it, like, I don't even have words to say how grateful and thankful I am for the time that I've been able to spend with my young growing family. But at the same time, dude, like I had no time to rest. I literally I was unable to drive 2 days before my wife gave birth. Like we were thinking about getting Uber to take us to the hospital. Like she couldn't drive, I couldn't drive. We're like, how in the hell are we going to manage this? And then all of a sudden, you know, my body's like, hey, you can do it. And then I have a newborn. I have to change diapers. My wife needs to be, you know, bedridden while she rests. There was no time for me to be like, I need to whatever. My family needed. And of course, there's been a lot of intentional things from my side, my nutrition, everything. I mean, we can dive into this at a whole 360 degrees. Like I've always been very particular with my sleep, my eating, drinking, you name it, X, Y, and Z. Well, I have now had to try to recover and heal more than I ever have before. So I've been even more refined and even more, and doing everything I'm doing football related is, to your point, there's been 1,000 guys like me that have done the same thing, and have they recovered at the same rate? No, you can't. It's apples and oranges. You can't compare each other. But I stand by this. I put my life on it. I would come home from work, like you were saying, and then I would continue work. But I was walking around the neighborhood or going to the park or bending down to pick up toys, or my son wanted me to go play with them. There was these small things in life that were literally identical rehab motions that I was just doing that morning. But I was no longer doing them in a weight room. I was literally applying them in real world scenarios. And the best part about this is I'm a little stubborn time to time. I would wear my younger son on my chest in a little kangaroo thing. My wife's active on Instagram, so everyone's probably seen this. I would wear one son on my chest, and then I would carry the other one or put him on my shoulders. I would put myself in these like acute scenarios where I'm like, I cannot afford to fail. I don't have the ability to catch myself, or I can't use my hands. I have to trust my knee in these scenarios because my kids' lives depended on it. It wasn't even no longer about me. It was like I had to be there for them. And I swear, man, like you're a dad. You've been a dad longer than I have. Like it's crazy. It's like it's almost impossible to define. And like I love these little monsters more than anything in the world. And like I can't wait to walk out on Al Lang and have both of them in my hands and then go lay into someone and hopefully, you know, banging a head or something like that. But no, I mean, it's been such a unique journey with so many like awesome perspectives and lessons and experiences. And like I've been just soaking it all in, to tell you the truth. Like I don't want to do it ever again. Hell, I mean, it's miserable. I hate it. But you know what I mean? Like I'm just who I am. There's positivity and optimism and everything in life. And like you sit there in the depths and the shallows and the negative, and you'll drown. You know, that's just fact. So I just choose to spin it the other way and make the most out of it.
Yeah, it's a great perspective, man. It's a great way to look at it. And, you know, it's funny because I remember years ago, I talked to you before you left, after you left, when you signed with Sundsvall in Sweden, you were actually in the FIFA game. So I put you on my team and I just like kept you there. So now like, and I trained you up and you know what I mean? Like, and you're one of my cup defensemen now, bro. It's great for my,
Tampa Bay. Respect to you for actually playing me at center back because all my buddies put me up top at the 9. They refuse to play me at center back. They're like, we're putting you 6'6" up top and you're just gonna go wreak havoc. I'm like, hey, I kind of like that as well. So it is what it is.
That is great. That is great. But I have trained who I traded for, or I got full Balogun. So I have him up there at the top too. So I got the American striker as well. Talk to me about some of the love and appreciation you have for the guys on your team. I've been able to really be fortunate to get close to a guy like Leo. I mean, he's just an awesome dude. But of course, you know, you have Lewis, you have Aaron. I mean, you guys are like the core of this Rowdies team now, brother. You know what I mean? And I love going to the games. My family loves going to the games. We're there cheering you guys on, win or lose. But to have, and especially like you 4 guys, you know, because it's going to be a lot of change. There's a lot of change every year, right? But Cal's gone, Jordan Farr's gone, Jordan Gardy's gone, Freddie's gone. Like it's a different crew. What's kind of that message with you and the guys that I just mentioned as you go forward to try to get that third star above the crest?
I mean, I guess in the simplest form, like continuity, consistency, a sense of a standard. I think going back to Lee and Neil and now Nico and Robbie, the Rowdies, I mean, we could go back to 1975. The Rowdies, in my opinion, and I've been fortunate to play for a few clubs, and, a lot of clubs have similar attributes, but the Rowdies have this identity about them, and it doesn't just transcend just through the first team or the club. It goes to you, Jay, and it goes to your daughters, and it goes to the last generation, the next generation, and it goes to the whole community. I think that's something that's particularly really special about the Rowdies. So to have that type of identity or standard, like I was saying, they're going to bring in types of players that live that on and off the pitch. And I think that, in essence, is your recruiting tactic, or how you bring in like-minded or like talented players. So Lewis, Leo, Aaron, myself, I love these guys. Like I don't know if I've ever publicly admitted this. And so like we've talked about it a lot with my teammates. Like I had to do what I had to do personally. I had an opportunity of a lifetime. I had to go chase it. I think no one can regret me for that. I'm extremely fortunate and thankful to have been able to come back to the Rowdies because this is home. But I would have this group of the crew that you just mentioned, I would stay with them forever. There's something very special about, and we're not perfect by any means. I mean, we all have our flaws, but that is kind of what makes a sports team or football team click. So like when guys intuitively, habitually, like I know how Lewis works, I know how Aaron works, I know when Aaron gets passionate or fired up, and I know when he's going to react emotionally, I know when Lewis is willing to like chirp at someone or the ref. Like these little things before your teammates know themselves, and that's what makes it work. And that's like you can see it in team sports. You can see that team identity, and it's so corny, but it is what it is. Like it's not always
real. It's real though.
Not always the best teams that win the championship. It's not like you can go buy the best players. They still might not win it. There's something about that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, like mentality. And I would like to think that the core that you just mentioned, we embrace that. Like we know that, one, we're not perfect, because if we were, frankly, we'd be playing in the Champions League and we wouldn't be here. Two, like that's it in itself. We're just not perfect. So we have that mentality of like we're just gonna keep working. Like we're gonna fail a million times, and we're gonna like give each other grace to do that, but we're gonna also at the same breath like demand that you keep pushing for more. Like, okay, yeah, you got knocked down 10 times, so stand right back up and go 10th, because the second you quit, you're out and the next guy's up. And I think we all know that in our core. And maybe this goes back into, me being able to say that I'm re-signing with the Rowdies is, that's something that I've had to maybe relearn or retell myself. Is like, I couldn't contribute on the pitch, but I can find ways to contribute, and that work and that dedication to finding that team success, regardless of how much you contribute. I mean, that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, and it's funny
that makes
that
sense.
Because,
and that put that into
100%. And I'm going to tell you why it makes sense, is because even though you weren't playing, right, you were still in a bunch of the social media videos. You still were at the majority, if not all, of the games, walking across the pitch every day with your black polo on. And I know that fans, that meant something to them, because listen, whether it's on purpose or not, like a lot of times, whether you're a great player or not a great player, it's out of sight, out of mind. We're an attention craved society. But to see you involved so much when you couldn't play, that says like you're part of the team, and it shows, it's indicative of the bond that you guys have, right? Like, and in the way that you guys know that it takes a certain level to be successful, right? And I close my eyes thinking right now, and it's like Lewis is running somewhere right now. He's out running, right? He's
probably running a whole marathon by it. It's 2 o'clock. He's probably running marathons.
He's doing something. Leo is practicing like his touch or 2-touch game. He's running around with the kids playing soccer, right? Aaron is the quiet. It's so funny. So I interviewed Aaron one time back at the old studio. He was like the most mild-mannered guy. Didn't hear anything. And then the very next game, bro, he gets right in this dude's face and he's screaming at this guy.
I mean,
and I'm like, bro, you had the perfect hair and everything. And I'm just like, bro, Aaron Guillen is hilarious, because you would meet him though. He's like such a nice guy. And then you see him on the pitch. Is he the biggest 180 flip between what he's like in real life than what he is on the pitch?
He's definitely up there. I mean, when that whistle blows, you turn into whatever monster,
Right.
whatever version you turn into. Aaron has we'll say passion or emotional side of him that if it comes out, like it's awesome. I love it. I'm all about it. But it's just one of those things you kind of got to keep it on a leash because Aaron's too smart to do anything stupid. I don't think in my experience with him he's ever done anything stupid. So I'm not going to keep that going. But no, dude, when he's fired up, it's awesome. I love it.
One of the things that we talked about in the past was the first time you had a conversation with Neil Collins on the phone in the airport, and you said you could barely understand, which is one of my favorite stories of all time. Jordan Doherty's now over there with him playing, and I got a chance to talk to Neil a couple of times when he was here to visit in the summer, and we went to United. We went to a Manchester derby when he was still over there at Barnsley. We didn't get a chance to meet up with him, but I mean, isn't it crazy to see how when people go to different places, like they somehow find a way to like come back? I mean, your story is a great example of that, like being able to go take that opportunity and then eventually come back and play with the Rowdies. Like that's got to be one of the cool things about being a professional athlete.
100%. I mean, and I've been fortunate enough to place professional soccer now for this long, where I've lived the experiences and made my own mistakes and been fortunate enough to recover from them and improve and not let them happen again. So I wasn't always like the teammate you just mentioned. There was a time where I was younger where I, maybe got snubbed out of the 11 and I had a sour attitude because I thought I was more deserving. We're all human. We all have those moments, and everyone sees it, like you were saying, whether you want to know it or not. And so I'm imperfect. I'm an imperfect person, but I always try to keep going. So I definitely appreciate the love, but I didn't get to where I am because I was just showed up. And this is from a lot of failures and a lot of lessons learned. But man, I'm sorry. Now I just got a little bit sidetracked because you had me locked up.
No, but it's the great thing about sports, and I feel like being around you guys, the personalities. I mean, even just the training staff and the PR and Gabby and Jake and all the way up to the top with Ryan and everybody. Like, you guys have always been so great to me and my family, and I am always so. That to me means more than anything, right? Is how you treat people, right? I am such a big believer on that. Like, it's not about money with me. It's not about what you can do for me. It's about how you treat me, my family, and how you treat other people too, right? That's why it's so easy to cheer and support the Rowdies, not just as the organization as a whole, but you and the guys that we just mentioned. And it's so easy to bring your family to games, right? And one of my good pals, Jeff Attinella, right? I mean, you want to talk about going down in Rowdies history. It's amazing, right? Like, to see what he was able to do. He still is able to give back in the community. And I know you guys doing camps and let everybody know, outside of, obviously getting back on the pitch, what you've been doing. Because I've been seeing a lot of videos, and you guys, it don't stop. There's no off season.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. Like, I was the little kid. Like, I'm so lucky to be able to have done what I have been done over the years and to be where I am. But I was that little kid. Like, my parents had no idea what soccer was. I just liked playing, and all of a sudden I'm playing college and pro, but I'm still that little kid. So and now that I have sons of my own, I see it even more, I can remember it even more, where that's why we play, is to put smile on people's faces. And we don't have a job if people don't show up. And there's so many things that you could say and go into it, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what you said. The golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated, or doing I've been saying this a lot recently with my friends and family, and this, metaphorically speaking, what's the point of having a steak dinner if you're the one eating it by yourself? I'd rather cut up that steak dinner and bring all my homies to the table. I don't care how much food I'm eating at that point, but the camaraderie and the entertainment and the laughter, that's gonna fill me up. I'm gonna be overflowed with that. That's what we need. So this mentality of intentionally. So this is where it gets funny. Every human, it has greed. We all want success, whether it be more of this or more money or whatever. You all want more and more freedom, more success, more choice, whatever. Well, in a weird, contradicting, selfish way, the more you give to others, the more that will come back to you. So what am I doing on the side? I did this in the Play for More campaign in 2021 after COVID. I was like, hey, I'm going to start donating money for my performances. I want the fans to tell me what charities or funds are important to them. And we're going to try to raise money for every single one. And I'm going to encourage y'all to match me. I'm going to put my own money on the table. Y'all come hop in the boat and let's raise some money. We raised like $12K that year, like insane for like 16 or 17 different charities. I mean, unbelievable. So then the other day, this is now weeks or months in thinking that, again, this goes back to my injury. Since May 23rd, a switch hit, just choices in my life. I just cleaned it all up, more intentional, more refined. And I started to just doing a lot more things for the betterment of just the whole good, whether it's my family or me or my wife or my kids or my neighbors or the club. It didn't matter. I was like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to go out of my way and put effort in where it doesn't immediately pay me back. And that dividend that's not coming right back will show up eventually. And sure enough, when it shows up, it will probably come back 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-fold. Who knows? Yep. So I've been wanting to do soccer clinics and camps. Getting to your long answer to your question. I've wanted to do a camp or clinic on my own for a little while. I moved to Europe, had kids, whatever, life had all these variables that showed up. So I had to put it on the back burner. Had the idea one morning. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. Let's get it going. Through the network that I'm so fortunate to have built in St. Pete, or in Tampa, I have friends and restaurant owners and business owners. And it just was like, hey, I'm going to do this. You want to hop on board? Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. You want to hop on board? And the whole idea was we had 2 trees fall on our home during the storm. I've seen all of our friends that have lost their entire homes because of the flooding or, whatever. Not whatever, because it's not just whatever. There's a ton of really tragedies across our community. A lot of things. I was like, I want to help, and I can't help everybody. FEMA can't even help everybody. But that doesn't matter. $1 raise is $1 more than we had yesterday. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do this clinic. I want people to contribute. I want people to donate. I want to get partners. I want to blow it up. I want to get everyone there. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not necessarily there to make money. Like, yeah, we're going to make a little bit of money. Sure. But that's not why I'm doing it. I just want to get the kids outside. It's the day after Thanksgiving. I know you're going to be driving your parents crazy inside. You're going to be stirred, like, up. Let's get the kids outside for like 6 hours. Give the parents a break. Because listen, I'm a parent. I want that break as well. We're going to provide you a healthy lunch because, again, I want my kids eating good stuff. And we're going to have some laughter. You're going to meet some pros, some role models. We did like trivia at halftime, made it educational. I mean, it wasn't about going to pay some guy for some soccer skills. I mean, trust me, the kids learned a ton of football knowledge and wisdom, and we had a great time on the pitch. But like the experience, man, like we had jersey giveaways, scarves, ice cream afterwards. Cali lunch. I give the plug. Small Batch Creamery provided gift cards and ice cream for the kids afterwards. Cali provided catered lunch for the children at halftime. Cookie Fueled Mama gave gift cards and cookies as giveaways and prizes. Raining Berries provided fresh fruit cups and bananas for the kids to snack on. I mean, it was just like we had numerous people that weren't even in attendance. They were like, hey, my kid can't make it because of X, Y, and Z, but we went ahead and made our donation to the GoFundMe. I mean, like stuff like that. Like I was at home and I would get an email being like, hey, blank and blank made a donation to the GoFundMe for $200. And I'm like, what? The clinic's $125. And the email just said the kid's not even going to be there. Like, and I would look at this is amazing. Like we're in a world where like groceries are expensive. Bills are expensive. Everything's expensive. So for people to turn around and like, hey, I want to give to someone else because, again, all the donations went to Rebuilding Tampa Bay, a nonprofit that are helping families in need after natural disasters. Very fitting for our community, obviously. But like people showing up out of the woodwork to help strangers. I'm like that. Like you can see how much it excites me. I mean, it jacks me up. It's sick. Like let's do that more and more and more and more. So no, I'm very fortunate to be with the Rowdies moving forward, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot of the things that I just said. Again, like I'm already trying to plan one for January. We'll see if we can get something going during the summer. I'm already thinking about a way to fundraise throughout the year. I mean, like, let's go. You know what I mean? There's so many ways that we can all help out, and I think sometimes it just takes a little push, and before you know it, everyone else will hop on the train. So
you got that right, partner. Well, make sure you use me as a conduit to get that message out, man, because I'll do whatever I can to help promote the message and do whatever I love the Rowdies, bro. I got the.
I see it. I saw it right away.
This thing's a monster, bro. This thing right here, when I wear it to games and it's like 90 degrees outside, this thing is not a great thing to wear in 90-degree weather. Good in the cold days, but I'm like, this is a good podcast shelf one because I got a bunch of other ones, though. Forrest Lasso, Tampa Bay Rowdies defender. He's back 2025. Cannot wait to see you guys back on the pitch. Be well, my friend. Have a great holidays. Give my love to your loved ones, and you're the man. Appreciate it. Talk soon.
Thank you, Jay. You're the man. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Man, Forrest Lasso, bro. We could talk for 6 hours. It's the best. The energy, the passion. He's saying a lot of things that I heard from my parents growing up. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't do anything to anybody else that you wouldn't want done to you. Man, really, really good stuff right there. We have some news here. Somebody just put something on there. Let me check here. Hearing Rays, and this is from Marc Topkin. Hearing that the Rays are in serious talks with Danny Jansen closing in on a deal. So there's some breaking news for you. Career 220 average, 727 OPS, career high home runs, 17 in 2023. $8 million for 2025 plus a $500,000 buyout. My thoughts on the Danny Jansen deal. Listen, he's very familiar with the AL East, playing with the Toronto Blue Jays there. A guy that we saw platooning a couple years ago with Alejandro Kirk. To me, I would love for the Rays to kind of commit to a guy that's a backstop that is going to play the majority of the games. I thought that was one of the big things that they mishandled last year. Was we heard so much from, Renee Pinto's going to be the guy. Renee Pinto's going to be the guy. And by the end of the year, it wasn't Alex Jackson, right? Everything changed. He was down in the minors and you getting Rortvetted. It was the Ben Rortvet show. So yeah, I like it. I'm always a big fan from pal here, Auto Racing Digest. Thank you for chiming in. I am a big fan of building through the spine, right? Forrest Lasso is a great example, right? Your center back, your midfielder, right? Got to be strong down the middle. I don't care what sport you're talking about, but especially in baseball, catcher, shortstop, second base, center field. So if you can kind of lock a guy in, and it's $8 million, that's a pretty penny for the Tampa Bay Rays, but it just shows what they think about him when it comes to being a guy that knows how to handle the pitching staff, right? And being in Toronto the last couple of years, you've seen a little bit of everything, whether it's the, Yusei Kikuchis of the world, Hyunjin Ryus of the world, Alec Manoah, who's had his struggles, Jose Barrios. So he's had to deal with a lot of different pitchers there with the Blue Jays. And one thing that I know from speaking to a guy like Mike Zunino a couple of years ago, it's hard because the Rays use so many pitchers. So spring training is so vital to be able to catch everybody, starters, bullpen guys, not just the guys on the 25-26 man roster, but guys in the minors that that the Rays are going to incorporate into their roster at some point, some form or fashion. Those guys will be up at some point. So getting Danny Jansen signed this early, December 6th, is a fantastic thing. Maybe he'll meet up with somebody before training camp, right? You don't know what's going to happen, but I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Lock in a guy that's still pretty young, go in there, have him be your lead guy, start building this team. And if you missed any of the conversation with Marc Topkin, the majority, if not all of the talk was about the stadium deal. But what about the team, right? What's this team going to look like next year? The option was picked up for Brandon Lau, so you have to think that he's going to be probably your starting second baseman. What's the deal with the future with Yandy Diaz? We know Junior Cameron is going to be your third baseman. You know that Jose Siri's with the Mets now. Josh Lowe's locked into right field. It looks like a guy like let me look at the roster real quick because it's been a while. RaysBaseball.com. What your pitching staff is going to look like, right? You know that you're going to see a good, healthy, Taj Bradley. You're going to see Ryan Pepio. What other changes are we going to see with this team? All I know is and let me not forget Shane Baz, right? Shane McClanahan coming back from injury. Drew Rasmussen, where does he fit in? Jeffrey Springs. So you have Danny Jansen in there. Does Rortvet come back? What does the rest of the infield look like? You had I mentioned Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau. You picked up Christopher Morel in the deal with the Cubs last year, right? Where does he fit into the future? Johnny DeLuca, probably going to be your center fielder. But you even look at this, the outfielders on the rosters right now. It's Mangum, Meisner, Lau, and DeLuca. It's going to change. Things are going to change. All right. Thank you all for tuning in today. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube, man. Every single one of those subscriptions certainly do help. I hope everybody out there has a wonderful weekend. Again, I will be at Raymond James Stadium on Sunday for the matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, and then we'll be live, on Monday at noon, breaking that whole thing down and talking all things Tampa Bay sports and beyond. I love you. I appreciate you. A big thank you to all of my guests today: Marc Topkin, Greg Wyshynski, Rick Peckham, Ira Kaufman, and Forrest Lasso. Everything will be up on my YouTube and on my Twitter. So if you missed any of the stuff, you can always go back and watch it, and then we'll kind of chop everything up so you can listen to the interviews just by themselves, and then we'll cut up some videos over the weekend, some of the best content, and put them out on all of my social media platforms. I'm going to go sit down, take a little bit of a rest. Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you next time right here on the Jay Recher Podcast.